Chapter 2105 Road to Tier 3. Chapter 2105 Road to Tier 3. An inferior legendary quest? Sherphone was stunned when he saw the system notification. As far as he could remember, the quest to link an NPC auction house to a guild's cities had only neared epic rank. Even if it were slightly more difficult to accomplish, the quest shouldn't be more difficult than an epic team quest. He had never heard of an inferior legendary ranked version. Although there was only one rank between inferior legendary quests and epic quests, the actual difficulty difference was massive. This was like the difference between peak and apex experts. Even apex experts would face extreme risks when completing an inferior legendary quest, and that was with the support of a superpower. Without a superpower behind them, completing an inferior legendary quest would require heaven-defying luck. During Shifeng's brief moment of shock, he received another system notification. System, congratulations. You are the first player to activate the Road to Prosperity in God's domain. There will be no penalties for failing the quest. Upon quest completion, you will be awarded an additional Peak Construction Design or Gold Town Promotion Order. A Peak Construction Design or Gold Town Promotion Order? Sherphone began to grow excited as he read this second notification. Both the Peak Construction Design and the Gold Town Promotion Order were painfully difficult to acquire in God's domain. Either of these items was easily as valuable as a fragmented legendary item. Any peak construction could easily attract a flood of players, increasing a city's popularity. Peak constructions were also required to promote an advanced city to a main city. A guild city could only truly become a guild's main headquarters after becoming a main city, which even individual Tier 5 players would find difficult to take down. To destroy a main city, one would need a group of Tier 5 players or a Tier 6 God-ranked player. This was also why only guilds with a main city were considered true first-rate guilds. First-rate guilds generally had quite a few Tier 5 players under their command, and with the home-ground advantage, these Tier 5 players could exhibit far greater combat power than ordinary Tier 5 players. Hence, even the various superpowers had invested a lot of time and effort to destroy a first-rate guild's main city in the past. Some superpowers had even spent 2 or 3 months trying to destroy a first-rate guild's main city. As for the Gold Town Promotion Order, it allowed players to promote an advanced town to a basic city unconditionally. Every superpower dreamed of commanding a basic city at this stage of the game. Not only would a basic city provide a stable source of income, but it would also allow its ruling superpower to control more territory. At the same time, a basic city was the basis for survival and level 100 plus neutral maps. God's domain had plenty of level 100 plus neutral maps, and every one of them had its own characteristics and resources. Occupying one of these neutral maps would certainly benefit a guild's members as they grew stronger. God's domain's current powers desperately needed both the Peak Construction Design and the Gold Town Promotion Order. Even though it would still be some time before players reached level 100, much would need to be done before they could explore level 100 neutral maps. Many powers in the past had only begun to prepare after players had reached level 90, and by then, it had been too late. Ideally, powers should prepare to explore level 100 neutral maps once players reach level 80. Players would need potions and items that would help counter the harsh environments players would encounter in neutral maps. For example, to amass these potions and items, the various powers would need to improve their lifestyle players' standards. They would also need to grind for recipes and designs. If a power only began to prepare for this expansion after players reached level 90, it wouldn't be ready in time, and superpowers were no exception. Its development in level 100 neutral maps would stagnate, and the process of elevating its expert players to Tier 3 would be affected. Zero Wing's foundations were still flimsy. Hence, Sherphone needed to prepare for exploring level 100 neutral maps as soon as possible. After all, after reaching Tier 2, players would need about the same amount of time for each level up before level 100. It only seemed like players' leveling speed decreased as they reached higher levels due to increased PvP encounters, which, in turn, resulted in more deaths than necessary. In addition, top-tier weapons and equipment became more difficult to acquire. Thinking up to this point, Sherfone promptly unfurled the parchment Weissman had given him. The parchment listed all the conditions that he would need to fulfill. Once he met these conditions, White River City's auction house would link with the auction house in Stone Forest Town. As expected of an inferior legendary quest. These conditions are absurd. Sherfone frowned as he read the parchment. To put it simply, he needed to obtain 100 units of 7 Luminaries crystal and complete 1 hero-ranked crusade quest. Although the quest only had 2 conditions, fulfilling both would even be a challenge for the various superpowers. The various superpowers likely didn't even know what a hero crusade quest was. A hero crusade quest was also known as a kingdom crusade quest. Even an entire kingdom would struggle to complete such a quest, so they were usually commissioned through the Adventurers Association. In the past, even the various superpowers had considered hero crusade quests absolute nightmares. In the past, first-rate guilds had been powerless when it came to hero crusade quests, and the various superpowers had sacrificed tens of thousands of expert players to complete them. Even Apex experts had died multiple times during the quest. Now, the system wanted him to complete one such quest just to connect 2 auction houses. Obtaining 100 units of 7 Luminaries crystal wasn't particularly difficult for Sherfone. After all, Zero Wing had already begun to explore the Tower of Time. Thus far, the guild had collected more than 50 units of 7 Luminaries crystal. If he sent Cola and the other main force members to the tower, acquiring the rest of the required 7 Luminaries crystals wouldn't be overly difficult. The Hero Crusade quest was the real problem. Ouroboros had once accepted a Hero Crusade quest when players had been around level 70. Their target had been the Lord of Fire in an ancient secret land. I can probably give it a go. After giving the matter some thought, Sherfone recalled the Hero Crusade quests in Starmoon Kingdom during his previous life. Of those he could remember, the only one he was confident of Zero Wing completing was the crusade against the Lord of Fire. Although Ouroboros had failed to defeat the Lord of Fire, the main reason for its defeat had been insufficient fire resistance. Ouroboros' members hadn't been able to withstand the Lord of Fire's attacks at all. A foreign superpower had arrived to hunt down the boss only after players had reached level 100. The achievement had sparked a huge commotion in Starmoon Kingdom at the time. Players could only complete a Hero Crusade quest once, and once it had been completed, it would vanish from God's domain forever. As long as a guild completed a Hero Crusade quest, it would be awarded a significant amount of guild popularity, which would attract more NPC nobles and even royalty to commission quests. A guild could even earn the appropriate deeds to become a territory lord, although trying to reach that rank was extremely difficult. After considering the matter for a moment, Sherfone decided to hunt down the Lord of Fire. Other powers might find it struggle to amass enough fire resistance to raid the Lord of Fire, but it wasn't an issue for Sherfone and his guild. He had already raided the Flame Demon King and obtained the Flame Demon's Crown, a piece of top-tier fire resistance equipment, after all. Furthermore, Zero Wing was far stronger than Ouroboros had been. With the help of Master Fire Resistance potions, raiding the Lord of Fire was definitely possible for the guild. As Sherfone left the city hall and was about to head to the Candlelight trading firm to prepare for the Crusade quest, Aqua Rose contacted him. "Guild leader, something major has just happened. A moment ago, Starlink made a move and invited every core member in our guild to join it. It is offering us 3 times what Zero Wing is paying, and it has poached a group of advanced lifestyle players from Candlelight. Starlink has started selling weapons and equipment for cred, causing our sales to plummet," Aqua Rose hurriedly reported. "Everyone in the guild is talking about it. I guess Starlink finally gave in and is trying to suppress us with its financial power?" Sherfone could not help but laugh. "How can you laugh at a time like this, guild leader? We are already tight on credits. Now that Starlink is trying to sabotage us, many of the guild's members are growing concerned. If our people start to leave the guild, our development will likely stagnate," Aqua Rose said, exasperated at Sherfeng's reaction. "I get it. Notify Melancholic and Yuan. Tell them to reduce our prices in the Dark Knight Empire and purchase the Empire's specialty materials at a high price. Since Starlink wants to cause trouble in Starmoon Kingdom, we'll do the same in the Dark Knight Empire. Sherfone calmly decided. Chapter 2106 Advanced Authority. Chapter 2106 Advanced Authority. Aqua Rose was stunned when she heard Sherfeng's orders. Guild leader, are we really doing this? Aqua Rose hurriedly asked after snapping out of her daze. We're short on coins and credits right now because of the guild's development. I'm afraid that we won't last more than 2 days if we go through with this. Zero Wing had secured White River City's auction house, which significantly increased the guild's income, but the battle had also tremendously elevated the guild's fame, which had attracted more recruits and increased the guild's member count. Overall, the guild's funds were still stretched thin. Meanwhile, a large-scale price war wouldn't yield results quickly. It could even backfire on Zero Wing. Starlink was its opponent this time, and the superpower had immense financial strength. Moreover, Zero Wing would be attacking Starlink's home turf. Even when Zero Wing's coffers had been overflowing, it still hadn't been a match for Starlink. Not even superpowers like Unyielding Soul or Crimson Emperor dared to engage in a financial war against Starlink. How many coins can we save each day after including the income from White River City's auction house? Sherfone asked. After deducting the guild's necessary expenditures and including the funds we have on hand, we should be able to save around 35,000 gold per day, Aqua Rose said with a bitter smile. 35,000 gold was unquestionably a huge sum to current first-rate guilds. Many of them dreamed of saving so much in a single day. As guilds continued to develop, they encountered more necessary expenditures. Trying to wage a price war against a superpower on its home turf with just 35,000 gold per day was a joke. That money would be gone in 2 days at most. Even if Zero Wing was generating more income each day, the guild could only afford to maintain its financial attack for around 5 days. Any longer and the war would affect the guild's development. That should be just barely enough. Sherfone mimicked Aqua's faint smile after giving the matter some thought. That's enough? For a moment, Aqua Rose wondered if she had misheard Sherfone. Either that, or she had accidentally told him the wrong numbers, stating the guild's net income as 350,000 rather than 35,000. That's enough. Just inform Melancholic and Yulon and tell them to see to the necessary preparations in the Dark Knight Empire, Sherfone said, nodding. He then disconnected the call and continued toward the Candlelight trading firm to prepare for the Lord of Fire raid. A few days ago, he wouldn't have been confident enough to start a price war with Starlink in the Dark Knight Empire, but he had already purchased 500 stamina gemstones from the 4-star wandering merchants all. The various major powers desperately needed stamina gemstones since they'd all started to explore neutral maps. Unfortunately, these neutral maps didn't have guild towns or cities yet where players could rest. Moreover, the various large guilds couldn't transfer their guild towns to these neutral maps yet, which meant that exploration relied entirely on players' strength and stamina. Meanwhile, the wealthier a neutral map was, the harsher its environment would be. As a result, players expended more stamina than normal when exploring these maps. Players would even consume stamina while standing still in some neutral maps, and even if they sat down to rest, their stamina recovery would only be enough to nullify the passive consumption rate. Players simply couldn't survive in these maps for long. Although there were some potions that aided in stamina recovery on the market, they were extremely rare. The various major powers usually saved these potions for their members, rarely selling them. Take Zero Wing, for example. Although Zero Wing could brew the exotic stamina potion, it only had 10 players that were capable of producing it, yet the guild had more than 500,000 members. After deducting the guild's needs, very few exotic stamina potions were left that could be sold on the market. This predicament only increased the stamina gemstone's value. First, the stamina gemstone did not have a set duration. It would not disappear after a certain period of use. Second, it did not have a level limit. Hence, players could use the stamina gemstone throughout their careers in God's domain. If players equipped 3 stamina gemstones, they wouldn't have to worry about stamina consumption when exploring neutral maps below level 100. Because of this, the various major powers had gone crazy for stamina gemstones in the past, each easily selling for 300 gold in an auction. While Sherfone prepared all sorts of fire resistance equipment and potions, players throughout Star Moon Kingdom had discovered Starlink's assault on Zero Wing, and a commotion erupted across the kingdom. Starlink has finally made its move. I knew Starlink couldn't take the embarrassment of losing to Zero Wing lying down. Even though Zero Wing has many experts, the competition between the various powers is one of finances. How can Zero Wing possibly compete with Starlink without any backers? Starlink is pretty impressive, though. It's actually poaching Zero Wing's members by offering to triple their salaries. I've heard that several hundred Zero Wing members have already left to join Starlink. Moreover, a large number of them are advanced lifestyle players. This will likely wound the Candlelight trading firm. I would be tempted as well. After all, they get to join a superpower and earn 3 times their normal salary. That's not all Starlink is doing. I've heard that it started to buy Star Moon Kingdom's materials at a high price, too. It is also selling similar products to the Candlelight trading firm at a much lower price. As a result, Candlelight's player traffic has decreased. Zero Wing's in trouble now. It has just secured White River City's auction house after fighting so hard, and just as it has gained the funds to start on the path toward becoming a superpower, Starlink had jumped in and made such a move. Zero Wing's development will likely stagnate. Sure enough, superpowers shouldn't be casually provoked. By this point, Star Moon Kingdom's players had gained a better understanding of superpowers' wealth. Although they had recently held an optimistic view of Zero Wing's future, hoping that Zero Wing could emerge victorious from a price war with Starlink was unrealistic. Meanwhile, a gorgeous woman in dark purple robes entered one of White River City's advanced bars. As soon as she spotted the middle-aged man wearing pitch-black leather armor at the bar, she hurried up to him. "Commander, I've just received a message from the Seven Sins. Not only has Starlink successfully secured 3 auction houses, but it has also become an advanced member in the Secret Chamber of Commerce. As an advanced member, the first thing Starlink did was use its authority to hold an advanced union. It looks like Starlink is trying to kick Zero Wing out of secret," Iloafe immediately reported. "An advanced union?" Yen Tianxin could not help but shake his head and sigh as he said, "Sure enough, hoping that a guild with no background can become a superpower is a fool's dream. Since that is the case, let's return to the Black Dragon Empire." Within the Secret Chamber of Commerce, there were 2 levels of membership, basic and advanced. Not only did advanced members enjoy greater authority and have more access to the Chamber's resources, but they could also hold an advanced union to propose changes to the Chamber's other advanced members. As long as more than half of the advanced members agreed to the proposal, it would be enacted immediately. One of the potential proposals included expelling basic members from the chamber. However, becoming an advanced member in the Secret Chamber of Commerce was extremely difficult. Not even all super guilds qualified for that level of membership, and Starlink's success in doing so was certainly shocking. Since Starlink was responsible for the proposal, Secret's advanced members would likely approve Zero Wing's removal to avoid provoking the superpower and prevent another from rising in God's domain. Now, not even the Secret Pavilion's objection could save Zero Wing from its fate. It was easy to imagine what end awaited Zero Wing if it lost access to the Secret Chamber of Commerce's sales channels. Sherfone, who busied himself in the Candlelight trading firm, received a frustrated notification from Yuan Tianxin, as well. After today, Zero Wing was no longer a member of the Secret Chamber of Commerce, and all dealings it had with the chamber would be cancelled immediately. Guild leader Black Flame, this decision is a result of the Advanced Union's agreement. Although the Secret Pavilion voted against it, the 5 other advanced members voted for the proposal. There was nothing the pavilion could do. Yuan Tianxin said apologetically, "It's fine. It's the rules, after all. Although, I have to thank the pavilion for voting in Zero Wing's favor," Sherfone said, chuckling. "Although Zero Wing is no longer part of the Secret Chamber of Commerce, if your guild needs anything, the Secret Pavilion can help with small matters." Just contact me if you need anything in the future. Yuan Tianxin sincerely offered. Thanks. Shifeng nodded appreciatively. As Shifeng learned of Zero Wing's banishment from the secret chamber of commerce, news of the matter spread throughout Starmoon Kingdom, causing an uproar. Nobody would have imagined that Secret would annex Zero Wing without a second thought. With this, Zero Wing would find it even more difficult to survive Starlink's economic suppression. Zero Wing, didn't you want to play? I'll give you my full attention this time. Lu Xingluo, in the distant Dark Knight Empire, laughed when he received the latest report on Zero Wing. Previously, he hadn't had the time to deal with Zero Wing, but now that Starlink has secured its position as the Dark Knight Empire's overlord, either Unyielding Soul nor Crimson Empire was a match for its prowess in the Empire. Now that he didn't have to worry about Starlink's position in the Empire, he had the time to punish Zero Wing for angering Starlink. Meanwhile, Melancholic Smile and Yuan had just arrived in one of the 100 Flower Palace's shops in Dark Knight City that Zero Wing had taken over. Guild leader, all of Candlelight's shops in the Empire have been stocked with stamina gemstones and exotic stamina potions. We can start selling them at any time. Melancholic Smile reported after calling Shifeng. Good. Begin the operation. Shifeng commanded. It's about time we teach Starlink a lesson. Chapter 2107 Foolish to the Extreme? Chapter 2107 Foolish to the Extreme? Melancholic Smile and Yuan went to work the moment Shifeng gave the command. In Zero Wing's name, they announced their intent to purchase the Dark Knight Empire's specialty materials at a high price and sell common goods at a low price. The post caused a commotion throughout the Empire the moment it went public. The Dark Knight Empire's players found the situation unbelievable. Insane! Zero Wing has gone insane! What? Is Zero Wing really starting a price war against Starlink? Practically everyone in the Dark Knight Empire knew of Zero Wing by this point. The guild had, after all, helped the 100 Flowers Palace resist Starlink's assault. It was no secret that Starlink had begun to use its financial prowess to suppress Zero Wing shortly after the auction arena had ended. However, no one had expected Zero Wing to pull a move like this in the Dark Knight Empire so soon after Starlink's actions in Starmoon Kingdom. Clearly, Zero Wing was retaliating. The news reached the Empire's various powers at light speed, and they all found Zero Wing's actions utterly astonishing. What are Zero Wing's people thinking? Are they unaware that Starlink has already secured Dark Knight City's auction house? Crimson Heart, the 100 Flowers Palace's first vice-guild leader, said flabbergasted. Starlink had already solidified its position as the Empire's overlord, and not even Unyielding Soul or Crimson Emperor would dare engage the superpower in a financial war. Moreover, Starlink had secured 2 other NPC auction houses. Its new financial strength was unimaginable. I've heard that Zero Wing's members have become jittery due to Starlink's suppression. Maybe Zero Wing is trying to raise morale and unite its members, Cleansru commented. In her opinion, this was Zero Wing's only option. A guild's morale and unity were extremely important. If the guild were fractured, it would only be a matter of time before it crumbled. Even so, this is just playing with fire. This has basically announced Zero Wing's intentions to fight Starlink. If Zero Wing loses this financial war, it will only suffer more, Crimson Heart said. Moreover, economic warfare is very taxing on a guild. This isn't a field battle, it is a pure competition of wealth and resources. War weapons are useless here. Cleansru fell silent after listening to Crimson Heart's reasoning. As Crimson Heart had said, fighting a price war would hinder a guild's operations, and the consequences of losing a war like this were far worse than losing a field war. While a guild could endure multiple defeats in a field war, a single loss in a financial war could force a guild to the brink of disbandment. Even worse, a guild would still suffer severe losses even if it won. To put it simply, there were no winners in an economic war. The 100 Flowers Palace wasn't the only guild in the Dark Knight Empire that Zero Wing's actions had confused. Unyielding Soul also discussed the situation. Zero Wing has gone too far this time. Mu Qing could not help but sigh as he read the discussions on the Dark Knight Empire's official forums. Grandpa, Zero Wing has a gold mine like Zero Wing City, as well as White River City's auction house. Overall, it still has frightening financial strength. Starlink won't come out unscathed from a financial war with Zero Wing either, Mu Lingsha said. Other guilds might not recognize Zero Wing City's value, but as a superpower, Unyielding Soul was very aware of it. Aside from the daily entry fees, the teleportation services the city offered to players who wanted to visit the Otherworld Gate generated astonishing profits. The Otherworld Gate had many precious treasures to offer players, and the leveling speed in the area was incredible. Even players from Starmoon Kingdom's neighbors had begun to head toward the Otherworld Gate to level, not to mention the kingdom's players. The city's teleportation services likely earned Zero Wing as much money as White River City's auction house. _U_re severely underestimating Starlink. Don't forget that Starlink has taken control of Dark Knight House. In other words, it holds the city's economic lifeline in its palm. Mu Qing said, shaking his head. A single word from Starlink is enough to determine who can enter the auction house and who cannot. Furthermore, Starlink controls 3 total NPC auction houses. Even if one of the auction houses stops generating income, Starlink won't suffer for it. Starlink's influence over the Empire's players is leaps and bounds beyond Zero Wing's. Do you think that everyone would risk provoking Starlink for a little extra profit? After all was said and done, Zero Wing was not a superpower. Ignoring background, there was a massive difference between the two guilds in terms of the number of auction houses under their control. The main reason that Starlink dared to provoke Zero Wing in Starmoon Kingdom was the fact that Zero Wing only controlled one NPC auction house. If Zero Wing prohibited Starlink's customers from using its auction house, it would sever its own lifeline. However, the same couldn't be said for Starlink. This was the difference between these guilds' foundations. It was extremely foolish for Zero Wing to think that it could use Starlink's tactics against it. Trying to mimic the superpower's suppression would only make Zero Wing's death even more miserable. I'll go and warn Zero Wing right away, Mu Lingsha said. It's too late, Mu Qing said, sighing. Zero Wing has already announced its intentions in this war using its own name. Every player in the Dark Knight Empire and Starmoon Kingdom knows what's happening. If Zero Wing gives up now, not only would the guild appear weak, but its players' unity would also shatter. Dark Knight City, Starlink's residence. Guild leader, everyone's discussing Zero Wing's declaration of war. Should we take further actions against the guild? Dawn Web asked Lu Xingluo. Of course. Inform the public that whoever dares to sell the Empire's specialty materials to Zero Wing should give up any hope of setting foot in Dark Knight City's auction house ever again. Laughing, Lu Xingluo continued, I want to see just how Zero Wing plans to play this out. Understood. Dawn Web promptly bowed and left the room. Dark Knight City's business district bustled with activity, and despite the late hour, players crowded the streets. As the Dark Knight Empire's imperial capital, the various adventurer teams and guilds members gathered here. One could easily find level 64 expert players with a casual glance, and there were quite a few experts in level 60 fine gold equipment. This scene would be impossible to find in an ordinary NPC city. However, the Empire's various powers hadn't stationed their members in Dark Knight City because it was the Empire's capital, but because it was a hub for the Dark Knight Empire's merchant players. This ensured that the city had more resources than anywhere else in the Empire. If the Dark Knight Empire had something good to offer, it could be found in Dark Knight City. Items that were nearly impossible to find in other NPC cities were commonplace here, and the majority of these items flowed through Dark Knight City's auction house. Many players had become famous or wealthy overnight because they had chanced upon treasures selling for far less than they were worth in the city's auction house. Due to Starlink's ban on Zero Wing, no one was in a rush to visit the Candlelight trading firm's shop in the business district. Very few players were willing to enter the shop since everyone was afraid of being banned from the city's auction house as well. Meanwhile, Melancholic Smile and Yuan were dumbfounded as they stood in Candlelight's empty shop. They were purchasing materials at a 30% markup and selling commonly used goods for 30% less than market value, Yet only a small number of players had visited Candlelight's shops in the Empire since they had made their announcement over an hour ago. Anxious, melancholic smile contacted Sherfong and asked, "Guild leader, what should we do? Because of Starlink's ban, the players who visit Candlelight here only buy our low-priced goods. We're losing money and gaining nothing. We won't be able to affect Starlink's economy at this rate." "Starlink has banned us?" Sherfong laughed. "How quick of it! Guild leader, we're losing money here, yet you can still laugh?" Melancholic smile asked, exasperated. "Now that Starlink has banned us, we can take action," Sherfong said. "Reveal the exotic stamina potions and stamina gemstones. Any player that wants to buy the exotic stamina potions can do so with the Empire's specialty materials. Auction off the stamina gemstones, but only to players who sell us 1 gold of specialty materials. Hopefully, Starlink keeps its word and goes through with the ban." "I'll get it done," Melancholic smile said, a joyful smile lighting up her face. Chapter 2108 Dark Knight Empire Shaken. Chapter 2108 Dark Knight Empire Shaken. Although Melancholic's smile wasn't a combat player, she understood the exotic stamina potions and stamina gemstones value perfectly. Zero Wing's exchange prices for the exotic stamina potions rose each day, and now, not even the guild's basic elite members qualified to purchase the potions. The exotic stamina potions were only available to those who had been guild members for a long time, significantly contributed to the guild, and were advanced elite members. Moreover, advanced elite members were limited to 1 bottle every 3 days. Even so, the guild's daily supply wasn't enough to maintain its stock. It was clear how important the exotic stamina potions were to combat players. However, Melancholic's smile didn't find the situation unreasonable. Current players had moved beyond grinding within kingdoms and empires' borders. Most players ran toward neutral maps as soon as they were a high enough level. Not only did neutral maps offer more opportunities, but leveling in these maps also proved faster than the alternative. This was a part of God's domain's balance. Players wouldn't earn much if they developed in save areas, but if they took a risk, they could reap more rewards. The exotic stamina potions were a large part of the reason that Zero Wing's members had reached level 50 so quickly. The stamina gemstones were even more impressive. Although they weren't as powerful as the exotic stamina potions, they were everlasting. Moreover, the stamina gemstone would only become more effective as players reached higher levels. Players could use the gemstones forever, and they were a treasure that could give the various major powers a significant advantage over their competitors. Melancholic smile immediately ordered a subordinate to set up a new counter for the exotic stamina potions. She also set up a small cabinet beside the counter to display the stamina gemstones and the necessary qualifications to bid for them in the auction. The moment these new features appeared in the shop, they attracted the few visiting players' attention. "Quick, look! There's a new counter! A new product?" The independent players browsing the shop weren't from the Dark Knight Empire. They were merely visiting Dark Knight City to purchase and sell items. Hence, they didn't particularly care about Starlink's ban. Their base of operations wasn't in the Empire, and if they couldn't purchase items from Dark Knight City's auction house, they could simply visit an auction house in another empire. Since the Candlelight trading firm was selling items below market price, they couldn't miss this opportunity to make a profit. So what if Zero Wing is pushing out a new product? Zero Wing overestimates itself if it thinks it can defeat Starlink in the Dark Knight Empire. An assassin from Starlink, disguised as an independent player, said disdainfully as he looked at the new counter. As far as he was concerned, his superior's orders to watch Candlelight was unnecessary. Even if the Dark Knight Empire's various major powers had 10 times the courage they currently displayed, they wouldn't dare offend Starlink for a little profit. Trying to counter Starlink's influence in the Empire's market by relying on independent players was simply a dream. Many of the Dark Knight Empire's precious materials could only be obtained with a certain degree of strength, and generally, only the various adventurer teams and guilds were strong enough. But as the Starlink assassin entertained such thoughts, someone's exclamation reached his ears. "Crap! The exotic stamina potion! This shop is actually selling exotic stamina potions." With those few words, the first floor hall fell silent. Almost every customer turned toward the counter at the same time, a hint of madness flashing in their eyes. They immediately dashed toward the counter. In less than 10 seconds, every customer inside the shop had crowded around the exotic stamina potions counter. "It really is the exotic stamina potion! For real! Zero Wing is actually selling this here? Crap! You can only purchase it for the Dark Knight Empire's specialty materials." The independent players panted a little when they saw the potions. "Boss, give me 10 bottles. I want 20. Boss, I want every exotic stamina potion you have." After a brief moment of shock, the several hundred independent players in the shop frantically shouted their orders for the exotic stamina potions. If the system's rules hadn't protected the counter, they likely would have tried to destroy it and steal the potions within. Meanwhile, Melancholic Smile, who watched from the second floor, was stupefied. When Candlelight sold the potion in Starmoon Kingdom, the kingdom's players had merely been surprised. Nobody had ever reacted like these independent players. They all seemed as if they had found a priceless treasure that was worth killing over. However, if Sherfong saw this, he wouldn't be overly surprised. Empires not only had more resources than kingdoms, but their competition was also far more intense. Kingdom's players couldn't even imagine how fierce the competition was in an empire. Furthermore, items that could increase players' stamina recovery were extremely rare in God's domain. Normally, independent players had no access to such items. While the players in the shop made a fuss over the exotic stamina potions, some noticed the cabinet next to the counter. Again, they expressed their shock. "Stamina gemstone? God's domain actually has such an item? If I equipped 3 or 4 of these gemstones, I wouldn't have to worry about surviving in God's domain's maps in the future. This won't do. Even if I go bankrupt, I have to get these stamina gemstones." Everyone stared at the crystal-clear stamina gemstones in the cabinet with bloodshot eyes. Naturally, these players paid no heed to the participation qualifications and the auction's minimum 100 gold bid. They immediately contacted their friends to borrow the necessary funds. The exotic stamina potions might be very important, but compared to the stamina gemstone, the potions were insignificant. With the stamina gemstones, players could treat neutral maps like their own backyards, hunting for more opportunities than other players. News of the Candlelight trading firm's exotic stamina potions spread like wildfire. Not only did it reach every corner of Dark Knight City almost instantly, but players also began to discuss the gemstones on the Empire's official forums. "Is Zero Wing insane? It's actually selling such a treasure. It seems Zero Wing really wants to go to war with Starlink. Fortunately for us, we can profit from this war. As long as we have enough stamina gemstones, exploring neutral maps won't be a problem." For a moment, the stamina gemstones' appearance caused an uproar in the Dark Knight Empire. The various adventurer teams, in particular, sent their members to Candlelight's shop in Dark Knight City to purchase a stock of the gemstones for their members. Other players might be afraid of being barred from the city's auction house, but adventurer teams like theirs weren't. After all, they could simply visit other auction houses. At most, they might have to visit another empire to shop. However, once they had the stamina gemstones, they would have an advantage over other powers when exploring neutral maps. They simply couldn't miss such a rare opportunity. The Dark Knight Empire's various large guilds secretly sent members to the Candlelight trading firm as well. This was just as much of an opportunity for them as it was for the various adventurer teams. Not even Starlink could dissuade them from purchasing stamina gemstones. If they disguised their members as independent players, Starlink would have a difficult time discovering their actions. Less than an hour after the public discovered the stamina gemstones, players crowded Candlelight's previous deserted shop in Dark Knight City. It was even more crowded than the city's auction house right now. Moreover, the prices for the Empire's specialty materials in Dark Knight City had doubled within the past hour due to Candlelight's auction requirements. Even so, none of the various large guilds or adventurer teams harbored any thought of taking advantage of this opportunity to sell their materials for a quick profit. For a time, chaos reigned over Dark Knight City's market. Eventually, the various superpowers' upper echelons, who were preoccupied with exploring neutral maps, received news of Zero-Wing's stamina gemstones. Chapter 2109 Changes in the Dark Knight Empire. Chapter 2109 Changes in the Dark Knight Empire. Starmoon Kingdom, an advanced bar in White River City's business district. All 3 floors of the bar had been rented out, but aside from NPCs, the first 2 floors were void of people. Players only occupied the top floor VIP room. The several players in the room were all level 65 or above and wore top-tier level 60 equipment. The leader was an elderly man in blue, who stared through a window, admiring the prosperous view. Suddenly, a level 64, black-clad assassin entered the room, looked at the elder, and said, "Eldery, we've just received news stating that Candlelight has started selling a large quantity of exotic stamina potions in the Dark Knight Empire. The trading firm has also begun to sell something called the Stamina Gemstone. Each Stamina Gemstone can increase players' stamina recovery rate by 7%. Candlelight is only accepting the Dark Knight Empire's specialty materials as payment, which has not only doubled the prices for these materials, but the various powers have also stopped selling any they have in stock." Stamina Gemstone? The blue-clad elder was astonished when he heard this. "How many are they selling?" "Based our investigations, Candlelight has prepared 60 Stamina Gemstones to sell in Dark Knight City," the assassin answered. 60? How generous!" The elder expressed his surprise at the assassin's answer. "Has Zero-Wing gone insane?" Players who frequented neutral maps understood how valuable items like the Stamina Gemstones were. Moreover, the more Stamina Gemstones one had equipped, the more valuable they would become. With 60 Stamina Gemstones, one could outfit a 20-man team that would then be able to operate in a neutral map without having to return to a city to recover stamina. The profits one could gain from such a team would be frightening, especially when exploring a new neutral map. If Zero-Wing organized such a team, it would gain a tremendous advantage over its competition. Yet Zero-Wing willingly sold the Stamina Gemstones, sacrificing such a wondrous opportunity. Only a lunatic would pull a stunt like this. It seems we still underestimate Zero-Wing. Starlink will have a hard time preventing the guild from affecting its economy. Prepare the necessary materials immediately. We're heading to Dark Knight City," the blue-clad elder commanded as he stood from his seat. He, like everyone else in God's domain, had thought Zero-Wing was simply making a fool of itself by challenging Starlink in the Dark Knight Empire, but now, it seemed that everyone had underestimated the guild's determination and strength. Likely no one had thought that Zero-Wing was willing and able to make such a move. The Dark Knight Empire's various major powers had taken a step back in respect of Starlink, but now that their future was on the line, no one would heed Starlink's warnings. With how tempting the Stamina Gemstones were, the prices of the Empire's specialty materials would rise astronomically. Unlike the usual rare materials, specialty materials were unique to a specific country. Starlink used the Dark Knight Empire's specialty materials as the Starlink Trading Firm's foundation in the competition with other kingdoms and empires' trading firms. If the prices of the Dark Knight Empire's specialty materials reached absurd heights or supply were severed, Starlink's profits would plummet. After all, the various superpowers relied on their trading firms and wide connections as their main sources of income, and for Starlink, these relied on the Empire's specialty materials as a foundation. Without this foundation, Starlink would struggle to make money through its trading firm. Meanwhile, a deathly silence reigned in the guild leader's office, which Lu Xingluo occupied, in Starlink's Dark Knight City residence. None of the guild upper echelons present in the room dared to utter a single word. In a short hour, Starlink had gone from able to purchase more than 10,000 specialty materials to only several hundred. Moreover, this number continued to fall as time passed. Not only had this situation severely impacted Starlink's ability to produce specialty merchandise, but it had also drastically increased production costs. Ultimately, Starlink had 3 main income sources for coins. The first source was the guild's trading firm. The second was its money farming teams and the guild members completing guild quests. The third source came from the guild's towns. Although Starlink now had NPC auction houses as a fourth source of income, it had just taken these auction houses over, it would still be some time before the guild earned a significant amount of profits from this source. A minor income decrease due to Zero Wing's interference would have been tolerable, but its impact wasn't minor at all. At this point, the Starlink trading firm generated 20% less profit than usual, and that percentage continued to increase. This predicament would severely impact the guild's development. To make matters worse, this was happening as Starlink needed to migrate its guild towns to new locations. Relocating a guild town required a lot of funding, and a profit loss meant Starlink would have to delay the move. Zero Wing! Lu Xingluo's expression twisted into something gloomy as he read the report in his hands. He then turned toward Dawn Webb and growled, "Notify our subordinates to increase the purchase price for Star Moon Kingdom's specialty materials immediately." "How much shall we raise it by, guild leader?" Dawn Webb asked. "Raise it by 50%. I want to see which of us will last the longest," Lu Xingluo said. "What about the stamina gemstones?" Dawn Webb asked. "If the other powers get their hands on them, they'll have a much easier time exploring the neutral maps around the Dark Knight Empire. We don't have many materials left. Let those powers have them. In any case, the Candlelight trading firm only has 60 stamina gemstones for sale. Even if a power purchases all 60, it'll only have enough to equip a 20-man team. That won't be enough to upset the Empire's power structure," Lu Xingluo said disdainfully. "Besides, how long can Zero Wing possibly afford to play around in Dark Knight City? Turn your focus to Star Moon Kingdom. Now that Zero Wing has lost the secret Chamber of Commerce's connections, it can only strut about its own kingdom." More than 10 neutral maps neighbored the Dark Knight Empire that were suitable for current players. No matter how powerful a 20-man team was, it could only explore one neutral map at most. The team wouldn't have the time to explore other neutral maps, let alone affect Starlink's exploration teams. In contrast, as Starlink raised the prices for Star Moon Kingdom's specialty products, Zero Wing's operation costs would rise, and its profit margins would suffer. Even if Zero Wing had White River City's auction house, its development would stagnate. As the various major powers continued to develop in neutral maps, stagnation would eventually eliminate Zero Wing from God's domain altogether. "Understood." Dawn Webb nodded. Meanwhile, the Candlelight trading firm's shop in Dark Knight City was lively as practically every power in the Empire gathered to view its products. Even representatives from other kingdoms and empires' powers had come to inspect the goods. Every player in the shop had traded 1 gold of specialty materials to qualify for the Stamina Gemstones' upcoming auction. None of them cared about Starlink's threat. Unless Starlink wanted Dark Knight City's auction house to go out of business, it wouldn't dare follow through and ban everyone that did business with Candlelight. "Everyone, the Stamina Gemstones will be sold in sets of 3. The bids will start at 300 gold of specialty materials. Each increment must no less than 10 gold. If everyone is in agreement, let the auction begin." Everyone in the first floor hall grew restless with Yolan's announcement. 400 gold. 450 gold. 600 gold. One major power after another yelled out astronomical bids, but at the end of the day, none of them could outcompete the superpowers that secretly participated in the auction. The first set of stamina gemstones sold for 1,250 gold, causing many of the participating guilds and adventurer teams to sigh with disappointment. With that kind of money, they could fully equip a player in top-tier equipment. However, none of these players found the price unreasonable. 3 stamina gemstones could enable an expert to roam neutral maps freely. If a superpower's peak experts had this freedom, they could easily earn back the cost of the stamina gemstones through the opportunities they found. It was definitely a worthwhile trade. If the bidding currency hadn't been limited to specialty materials, the price would have likely gone higher. The various superpowers continued to win stamina gemstones in the auction. In the end, the 20 sets had netted nearly 27,000 gold in specialty materials for Zero Wing, which had even surpassed Shifeng's expectations. Zero Wing has earned quite a stock of materials through this auction, but it's a pity that its success ends here. Mu Qing, who wore a black cloak amidst the crowd, was a little disappointed to see the stamina gemstones out of stock. While Zero Wing had indeed affected Starlink's operations by selling the stamina gemstones, the plan wasn't viable long-term. Once the auction ended, Dark Knight City would return to normal, while Zero Wing had only gained specialty materials. Naturally, Mu Qing wasn't the only one with such thoughts. All of the various superpowers thought the same. However, just as the crowd was about to leave, Melancholic Smile walked into the center of the hall. The Master Forger's insignia she wore and her majestic aura attracted many of the players' attention. Even the various superpowers only had a handful of lifestyle masters, much less Master Forgers. Today's auction for the stamina gemstones has come to an end. The next auction will take place tomorrow at the same time. Customers who failed to win gemstones today may visit us then, Melancholic Smile announced. Any members of the Candlelight trading firm that spend more than 3 gold in this city's shop will be eligible for a lucky draw on the day of their transaction. We will select one winner every 4 hours who will be able to purchase one stamina gemstone for 200 gold. As Melancholic Smile finished speaking, silence descended on the hall. After a brief moment, many players spoke up. Is this a joke? Zero Wing has more stamina gemstones. Even the various superpowers stared at Melancholic Smile in shock, not to mention the many independent players. How is this possible? Eldery muttered, surprise coloring his tranquil features. Selling 60 stamina gemstones was already amazing, yet by the looks of it, Zero Wing intended to continue selling the gemstones for a considerable period. Although he did not know how long Zero Wing could maintain this business, every additional day would affect Dark Knight City. Moreover, the impact the city felt would grow stronger with each day. Every auction was the equivalent of another 20-man team that could explore neutral maps without concern for their stamina. If Zero Wing maintained these auctions for 5 or 6 days, it would likely change the power structure in the Empire's neighboring neutral maps. If that happened, the Dark Knight Empire would likely find a new ruler. Chapter 2110 Situation Changes. Chapter 2110 Situation Changes. News that the Candlelight trading firm would sell stamina gemstones long-term spread throughout the Dark Knight Empire like wildfire. Small guilds and adventurer teams that hadn't expressed any hope of obtaining stamina gemstones began to grow restless. Candlelight is selling stamina gemstones long-term? This is interesting. Our chance to grow stronger has finally come. Although the 60 stamina gemstones had been tempting, it simply wasn't enough to go around. There were already 3 superpowers in the Dark Knight Empire, not to mention first-rate guilds and top adventurer teams. There were also hidden dark forces. Small guilds and low-ranked adventurer teams had no chance of securing stamina gemstones, and even if they won a bid, what could they possibly accomplish with only 3 gemstones? However, Candlelight's recent revelation had changed the situation. If the Candlelight trading firm truly sold stamina gemstones long-term, they'd have a chance to purchase a good number for themselves. Candlelight was only accepting the Dark Knight Empire's specialty materials as currency, and even if the various superpowers had a large stock of these materials, there was a limit. As long as these minor powers saved their materials for some time, they could definitely win 1 or 2 bids every now and then. Once they had enough gemstones, they could make full use of them in neutral maps. For a time, the Dark Knight Empire's various powers ordered their members to collect as many specialty materials as possible, prohibiting the items' sales. They'd benefit more from spending the specialty materials on the stamina gemstones and exploring neutral maps than they would by selling them. Furthermore, other powers would overtake their progress if they didn't secure stamina gemstones early on. Meanwhile, due to the Candlelight trading firm's removal from the secret Chamber of Commerce, all previous agreements between the two had become null and void. As a result, the Chamber began to withdraw the manpower and items it had assigned to Zero Wing City in Starmoon Kingdom. While Yuan Tianxing arranged for his subordinates' move out of their office, a heroic woman in gorgeous sacred armor approached him. She drew everyone's gaze as she entered the office, mesmerizing many of the men. As expected of Goddess Purple Jade. She's already level 66. She can likely rank among the top 20 on any Empire's ranking list. I've heard that 2 days ago, her team completed an epic team quest and slew a level 60 mythic ranked Ironblood dragon, obtaining the Dragonblood sword. That sword is so awesome. It's even considered as one of the top 10 epic weapons in God's domain. Because of that sword, Purple Jade is now stronger than other peak experts, earning the position as one of God's domain's 10 great swordsmen from the Secret Pavilion. As players spoke about the 10 great swordsmen, their admiration overwhelmed them. The 10 great swordsmen was a list the Secret Pavilion had introduced to promote each class's experts. All classes in God's domain were unique, and some were even the polar opposite of others, so battles between different classes couldn't accurately determine the stronger expert. Hence, the Secret Pavilion had introduced new ranking lists for each of the 12 main classes. Each of the lists had only 10 players, and they were judged solely based on their strength. Combat standards and battle records didn't matter. In addition, the aim of these 12 class lists was to give the younger generation an opportunity to shine, so only players 30 years old or younger could qualify for the ranking lists. Of course, this age limit also allowed the Secret Pavilion to avoid touching upon the various superpowers' foundations. The various superpowers treated their old monsters as core secrets, and if the Secret Pavilion revealed these secrets to the public, the superpowers would band together against the organization. When Purple Jade had obtained the Dragonblood sword, not only had it earned her a position on the swordsman's list, but she had also secured the 8th rank. Uncle Yuan, we've just received a message from the higher-ups. They'd like us to buy some stamina gemstones from Zero Wing. The more, the better, Purple Jade said, smiling as she walked up to Yuan Tianxin. They're so shameless. We just banished Zero Wing from the Secret Chamber of Commerce, yet they want me to negotiate with the guild? Why don't they speak with Zero Wing themselves? Yuan Tianxin could not help his growing anger when he heard the relayed message. The so-called higher-ups. Purple Jade referred to were the Secret Chamber of Commerce's advanced members. The Secret Pavilion had warned them not to casually annex the Chamber's members, particularly Zero Wing due to the immense potential it had shown lately. However, the other 5 advanced members had ignored the Secret Pavilion's warning and abandoned Zero Wing. Now that they wanted him to place Peacemaker. But Zero Wing is pretty amazing. It has revealed something as valuable as the stamina gemstones, and the 5 powers regret their actions. I've heard that they are busy exploring the recently discovered Brute God's land and urgently need items that can increase players' maximum stamina or recover rate. Purple Jade said, giggling. They're panicking now. They threw away their chance to purchase stamina gemstones just to show respect to Starlink and suppress Zero Wing. Now they are all upset with Starlink. However, Starlink has gotten serious this time. Not only has it increased the prices of Star Moon Kingdom's specialty materials, but it has also begun to sell similar merchandise to Candlelights at lower prices. Many players have already started shopping at the Starlink trading firm. No one is buying the Candlelight's common products. I'm afraid Candlelight has lost 2/3 of its usual profits, Yuan Tianxin said. To make matters worse, the Or Empire's powers have been eyeing Zero Wing's territory. In comparison, Starlink only has to worry about Zero Wing's stamina gemstones. Although the stamina gemstones are valuable, Starlink isn't a superpower for no reason. With 3 NPC auction houses and the Starlink Corporation's support, its financial prowess isn't so easy to shake. Moreover, Starlink has control of a fortress in the ancient undead country, the Dark Knight Empire's most important neutral map. It is simply too difficult for Zero Wing to impact Starlink's finances negatively. The ancient undead country was a new expansion pack that had triggered in the Dark Knight Empire, and Starlink was responsible for triggering it. The ancient undead country had once been a massive empire, but due to an ancient war, it had fallen into ruin. It was no exaggeration to say that the ancient undead country was even richer than the Or Empire in resources. Moreover, it housed the only known God Mode regional dungeon among the dozen or so neighboring kingdoms and empires. Because of the power Starlink held in the ancient undead country, even the various super guilds feared the superpower and had to pay it proper respect. God's Domain's superguilds didn't just fear Starlink due to the Starlink Corporation's backing, and if that were the only strength the guild had, the Secret Chamber of Commerce's advanced members wouldn't have allowed Starlink to join their ranks. Zero Wing is fully capable of returning to the Secret Chamber of Commerce with its stamina gemstones. The 5 other powers wouldn't object. If Zero Wing regains access to our sales channels, it could certainly afford to continue its fight with Starlink while growing even stronger, Purple Jade said, nodding. She, too, understood how powerful Starlink was, and the fact that Zero Wing had made this superpower suffer as much as it had already was impressive. Indeed. Yuan Tiexin agreed with the young woman. Starlink would struggle to suppress Zero Wing financially if the smaller guild returned to the Secret Chamber of Commerce. Following which, Yuan Tiexin contacted Shifeng to report the good news. Chapter 2111 Condition. Chapter 2111 Condition. White River City, Candlelight Trading Firm. Due to Starlink's all-out economic suppression, the previously crowded shop had calmed. Its current customers were only here to purchase Candlelight's specialty products. None of them showed any interest in the trading firm's common items. The Candlelight trading firm even saw a drop in the number of lifestyle applicants. Now only a dozen or so players lined up to take the application test. The players that passed the shop sighed at its decline. The Candlelight trading firm's shop was the most eye-catching building in the business district, aside from NPC-owned buildings. The shop loomed like a giant, overlooking White River City. Why wouldn't they be surprised to see the shop practically deserted? In comparison, a 3-story shop not far from Candlelight boomed with business. Practically every player in the business district rushed toward the shop. Starlink really is ruthless. Not only has it set up shop in every NPC city that the Candlelight trading firm occupies, but it's also selling common goods at half the normal rate. It is basically selling items at cost. Purple Jade was astonished when she saw how popular the Starlink trading firm had become. Starlink was throwing away enough money to give an ordinary superpower a heart attack. Not even the secret pavilion would casually sacrifice so much income. However, Purple Jade had to admit that Starlink's strategy was effective, practically stealing all of the Candlelight trading firm's customers. Not only had Candlelight's sales plummeted, but its lifestyle players' income had suffered as well. Including Starlink's mass recruitment for skilled lifestyle players, many of Candlelight's intermediate and advanced lifestyle players had jumped ship. If this persisted, it would destroy the Candlelight trading firm, and Zero Wing would stagnate due to the lost profits. Zero Wing was no longer a small guild, it had become a gigantic existence. Even if the guild avoided massive operations, it still needed to spend an astronomical amount of money each day. The guild might maintain its lead over its competition for a while, but if Zero Wing's development ground to a halt, it would only be a matter of time before it was overtaken by the other powers. Furthermore, multiple hostile superpowers still searched for a chance to tear the guild apart. These factors were a large part of the reason that Starlink had invested so much into targeting the Candlelight trading firm's business. Otherwise, it never would have paid such a painfully high price. This situation is why we are here. If this weren't happening, we wouldn't have any leverage to negotiate with Zero Wing, Yuan Tiexin said seriously. All right, let's hurry inside. Yuan Tiexin then entered the Candlelight trading firm, while Purple Jade followed behind him after taking one last look at Starlink's shop. The moment these two players entered the shop, the various reconnaissance players from Star Moon Kingdom's various powers focused on the pair. Why are the secret pavilions Yuan Tiexin and Purple Jade visiting the Candlelight trading firm? Didn't the Secret Chamber of Commerce already expel Candlelight? Why are these two here? Does Secret intend to re-invite Candlelight? The various powers players quietly discussed their guesses as they watched Liang Jing lead the pair to the second floor. News of the Candlelight trading firm's exile from the Secret Chamber of Commerce had spread throughout Star Moon Kingdom. It was precisely the reason that Starlink's suppression against Zero Wing was so effective. Meanwhile, Yuan Tiexin and Purple Jade were some of the Secret Pavilion's VIPs. These two shouldn't have any reason to visit Candlelight now that it wasn't a member of the Secret Chamber of Commerce. The only plausible explanation involved the stamina gemstones Zero Wing sold in the Dark Knight Empire. The stamina gemstones' importance to the various powers went without saying, especially to superpowers. However, only Zero Wing currently had access to their source. The Secret Chamber of Commerce would find it difficult to convince Zero Wing to share these gemstones unless it offered a token of its sincerity. The best expression it could offer required reinstating the Candlelight trading firm's membership in the Secret Chamber of Commerce and offering additional remunerations. TIS reconnaissance members immediately reported the situation to their superiors, and very quickly, news of Yuan Tiexin and Purple Jade_S visit reached the kingdom's various powers. Things are going to get interesting, Commander. Starlink has gone through great lengths to kick Zero Wing out of secret, yet Zero Wing's stamina gemstones are about to ruin its plans. Ilofe, who read her subordinate's latest report in FFF Adventurer Team's residence in the distant Black Dragon Empire, said. Smiling, she continued, when Starlink's upper echelons learn of this, they'll die from anger. That depends on whether or not Zero Wing wants to rejoin the Secret Chamber of Commerce. Yan Tianqing responded absently as he polished his short sword. Why wouldn't it? Ilofe asked strangely. Zero Wing can resolve the issues it faces in Star Moon Kingdom immediately by rejoining Secret. Although Starlink's efforts will still affect its business to a certain extent in Star Moon Kingdom, it'll be tolerable. Why wouldn't Zero Wing want to rejoin Secret? Will Black Flame really abandon his guild's development because of the minor humiliation? Any other guild would definitely accept Secret's attempts to reconcile, but Zero Wing has always been overbearing. There's a high chance that the guild will refuse the offer. Yan Tianqing said. This is also Zero Wing's flaw. If Zero Wing can fix that, it has a high chance of becoming a superpower in the future. That can't be possible, can it, Commander? Would Zero Wing really sacrifice such a vibrant future? Ilofe asked, surprised. It's highly possible. After all, Zero Wing has always operated in such a way, Yan Tianqing said, sighing. I used to be like that, too, and as a result, I missed that final step. Hopefully, Zero Wing will make the right decision. Star Moon Kingdom's various superpowers were eager to hear Zero Wing's final decision, but unlike Yan Tianqing, most of them assumed that Zero Wing would jump at the chance to rejoin the Secret Chamber of Commerce. It was, after all, the only way that Zero Wing could recover from its current predicament. While the various powers secretly discussed the matter, Yuan Tiexin and Purple Jade waited in Candlelight Trading Firm's VIP reception room in silence, watching Shifeng. Guild leader Black Flame, the secret pavilion will reinforce Zero Wing's permanent membership in the Secret Chamber of Commerce. From now on, not even advanced members will have the authority to expel your guild. In addition, if Zero Wing agrees to sell a large number of stamina gemstones, several of the Chamber's advanced members will offer 10 additional sales channels in their own headquarters. With this, not even Starlink will achieve much by targeting Zero Wing financially, Yuan Tiexin said. May I know your thoughts on this offer, guild leader? Even Yuan Tiexin found the higher-ups' conditions surprising. The 10 additional sales channels were an extraordinary offer, all of which came through the shops in Empire's imperial capitals. These sales channels were far more valuable than those the Chamber's basic members had access to. With them, the Candlelight Trading Firm's profits would rise to a whole new level. Your conditions are quite tempting, Shifeng said, nodding slightly as he read the contract Yuan Tiexin had handed him. However, they're not enough. Yuan Tiexin found Shifeng's reply understandable. After all, the man should be enraged over Candlelight's removal from the Secret Chamber of Commerce. Softly, Yuan Tiexin asked, What conditions do you have in mind, then? I only have one condition. Looking straight at Yuan Tiexin, Shifeng chuckled and said, I want advanced membership in the Secret Chamber of Commerce. Chapter 21:12 God Mode Regional Dungeon. Chapter 21:12 God Mode Regional Dungeon. When Shifeng stated his condition, everything in the VIP reception room seemed to freeze. Both Yuan Tiexin and Liang Jing, who stood behind Shifeng, stared at the swordsman incredulously. Most of the guilds in God's domain recognized the Secret Chamber of Commerce for the extraordinary existence it was, and those who could become members were either superpowers or powers with immensely powerful backgrounds. However, only those that had truly joined the secret chamber of commerce would understand how frightening the chamber was. Only a few of God's domain's powers could match the reach of Secret's influence. The secret chamber of commerce ranked at the very top in the game in both its ability to sell merchandise and its ability to collect materials. This was why the majority of God's domain's superpowers dreamed of joining Secret. When Liang Jing had taken over the Candlelight trading firm's business, she had learned how frightening Secret was. She was not a pure gamer like Shifeng, but she had managed a company before, so she knew business and economics far better than most of God's domain's players. She already found it astonishing that Zero Wing had become a member of the secret chamber of commerce. She hadn't expected such exceptional results from Shifeng. But now, the man demanded status as one of Secret's advanced members. She had no idea what to say about this. His demand was beyond daylight robbery. Guild leader Black Flame, this condition is simply impossible. Do you know what price the Secret Chamber of Commerce's advanced members had to pay to get to their position? Contrary to expectations, Yuan Tianxin wasn't angry about Shifeng's condition. Instead, he calmly said, I can tell you now that even with over tens of thousands of stamina gemstones and all of Zero Wing City, you still wouldn't qualify to become an advanced member. Even superguilds coveted the Secret Chamber of Commerce's advanced membership, but the number of superguilds that actually became advanced members could be counted on one hand. If Starlink hadn't handed over an astronomical amount of resources and advanced member status in the Secret Chamber of Commerce was extraordinary. Not only did they have access to more sales channels, but they also had some control of the chamber itself, and received 5% of the chamber's profits. While 5% might not seem like much, it was enough to rival 50% of an ordinary superpower's income with the scale of Secret's operations. In other words, by becoming an advanced member in the Secret Chamber of Commerce, one would gain half of an ordinary superpower's resources. Claiming that one could become a titan in God's domain by becoming an advanced member was no exaggeration. How could a few stamina gemstones possibly rival such benefits? Stamina gemstones might be a significant boon to players in neutral maps right now, but as players leveled up, they'd acquire better items. Naturally, players would find more items that increased maximum stamina and stamina recovery. They wouldn't have to worry about lacking stamina items in the future. Furthermore, stamina gemstones were very scarce right now. Zero Wing didn't have enough to affect the big picture. At most, it had enough for the various powers to gain a slight advantage when exploring neutral maps. Elder Yuan, I know the value of advanced membership, Shifeng said, smiling. Naturally, I have my reasons for stating this condition. I'm not just spouting empty words. Oh? What is Guild Leader Black Flame willing to offer then? Yuan Tianxin could not help his growing curiosity. Yuan Tianxin, more or less, understood Shifeng's personality. The man wasn't some ignorant fool. He was a domain realm expert, and if he dared to say such a thing, he had the confidence to back it up. However, Yuan Tianxin also found it very difficult to imagine what Zero Wing could possibly offer to convince the secret pavilion that Zero Wing should become an advanced member. I'll hand over 40% of Stone Forest Town's shares, Shifeng declared. As Stone Forest Town? Yuan Tianxin was stupefied by Shifeng's answer. For a moment, he even wondered if he had heard wrong. Guild Leader Black Flame, are you talking about the Stone Forest Town in the Stoneclaw Mountains? That's right. I'm talking about that Stone Forest Town. Shifeng nodded. Guild Leader Black Flame, if you are not interested in this transaction, I won't force you to agree to it. If there is nothing else to discuss, we'll be taking our leave, Yuan Tianxin said as he inwardly rolled his eyes at Shifeng. He was sure that Shifeng was toying with him. Not even 2 Zero-Wing cities would be enough to buy an advanced membership in the Secret Chamber of Commerce, let alone an advanced town like Stone Forest Town. Moreover, Shifeng only offered 40% of the town's shares. Even Liang Jing felt that Shifeng had gone overboard with his latest joke. Stone Forest Town was indeed an excellent advanced town, but the map it occupied was no longer suitable for players to level up. Stone Forest Town wasn't even worth as much as Silverwing Town, much less Zero Wing City. What if I tell you that I can move Stone Forest Town to the ancient, undead country's bottomless abyss? Sherfone unhurriedly mentioned as he watched Yuan Tiexin stand from his seat and turn to leave. What? Yuan Tiexin was stunned. He spun around and demanded, Are you telling the truth? As far as the secret pavilion knew, the ancient undead country's bottomless abyss was the only God mode regional dungeon in God's domain. The bottomless abyss was a level 60 to level 100 super large-scale regional dungeon, and not only did it have far more resources than Azura mode regional dungeons, but the dungeon's monsters also dropped 7 luminaries crystals. Unfortunately, the ancient undead country's environment was exceptionally harsh. Players would have an extremely difficult time surviving inside the dungeon. In fact, entering and leaving the dungeon was immensely troublesome, not to mention exploring it. A large part of the reason that the Secret Chamber of Commerce had agreed to promote Starlink to advanced membership was the guild's willingness to hand over the fortress it had obtained in the ancient undead country. Otherwise, Starlink would have needed to offer a lot more to elevate its membership. Yuan Tiexin could not fathom how Sherfone could move Stone Forest Town to the bottomless abyss. Setting up a guild town in a neutral map was already incredibly difficult, not to mention setting one up in a God mode regional dungeon. However, if what Sherfone said were true, the bottomless abyss would become one of Zero Wing's backyards. Exploring the regional dungeon would become at least half as difficult, and players wouldn't need to worry about their survival in the bottomless abyss. Of course. Sherfone nodded. The idea would be delusional at best for others, but for Sherfone, the task was only somewhat difficult, not entirely out of the question. To complete the task, Zero Wing would need a large stock of resources, enough that not even top-ranked first-rate guilds would be able to afford it. Originally, Sherfone had planned on setting up Stone Forest Town in a neutral map outside of Starmoon Kingdom, but now that the ancient undead country had been discovered, he dismissed his initial plans. God mode regional dungeons were treasure troves, and even the various superpowers would fight for control of the areas. Since someone had discovered the ancient undead country now, and the secret pavilion had come knocking on his door, Sherfone wouldn't ignore this opportunity. Even so, that's not enough. It's only a town and a regional dungeon, Yuan Tiexin said, but looking at Sherfeng's confident expression, he couldn't help but return to his seat. This is the most sincere offer I can make. If it isn't possible, then I can only apologize for the inconvenience, Sherfeng said, chuckling at the interest flashing in Yuan Tiexin's eyes. I am absolutely certain that the higher-ups will not agree. You'd be better off requesting another condition. Yuan Tiexin responded with conviction. After giving the matter some thought, Sherfeng said, Since that is the case, then I want Starlink's advanced membership revoked. Chapter 21:13 Giving Starlink a Taste of Its Own Medicine. Chapter 21:13 Giving Starlink a Taste of Its Own Medicine. Revoke Starlink's advanced membership? Yuan Tiexin was stunned by Sherfeng's new condition. Purple Jade, who sat beside Yuan Tiexin, gaped at Sherfeng in shock. She had never thought that this man would make such a demand. Instead of securing more benefits for Zero Wing, Sherfeng wanted Secret to revoke Starlink's advanced membership. He was simply insane. Guild leader Black Flame, whether or not the higher-ups agree, do you understand the consequences for doing something like that? Yuan Tiexin asked after taking in a deep breath. Starlink has paid a massive price for its advanced membership. If it finds out that it lost it due to Zero Wing, it won't rest until your guild had been destroyed. Elder Yuan, I am only doing what Starlink has done to Zero Wing. If Starlink wants to face Zero Wing in an all-out fight, we welcome it, Sherfeng said unperturbed. Within Starmoon Kingdom, Zero Wing wouldn't fear Starlink even if the guild launched a full military assault. On an open battlefield, the Guardian puppets and Hell tanks were invincible against Tier 2 players, and even if Zero Wing were no match for Starlink in guerrilla warfare, Zero Wing had the home ground advantage. Zero Wing already occupied most of the valuable leveling maps in the kingdom, and if the war dragged on, it would only be in Zero Wing's favor. In fact, Zero Wing would rather face an assault than deal with these financial attacks. Zero Wing's development already required significant funding and resources, and now, it had to split a portion of its assets to fight Starlink. If this persisted, it was easy to imagine what outcome awaited Zero Wing. But advanced membership in the secret Chamber of Commerce was extraordinary. The 5% of the Chamber's revenue alone was enough to sustain Starlink in this financial war. If Starlink lost its status, however, not only would the Guild's finances suffer, but the suppression Zero Wing faced would also lighten. All right, but I cannot make this decision alone. I still have to report to the higher-ups. Naturally, I cannot guarantee what they will decide, Yuan Tiexin said, sighing as he looked at Shifeng's fearless expression. Of course. Shifeng nodded. Kicking a basic member out of the secret Chamber of Commerce was already extremely difficult. Trying to demote an advanced member was even more challenging. At the end of the day, however, it was up to the secret pavilion. All members, both basic and advanced, only exchanged 1% of their shares with the secret Chamber of Commerce. Advanced members merely received better benefits than basic members. Moreover, the contracts all powers signed with secret were one-sided. The secret pavilion could dismiss any member on a whim, including advanced members. However, the secret pavilion would not casually dismiss or demote advanced members as they brought in far more profits than basic members. The secret pavilion had only agreed to remove Zero Wing from the chamber because Starlink had paid a large enough price. Now that Zero Wing wanted Starlink demoted, it had to pay an equally high price. Yuan Tiexin walked over to a corner of the room and contacted the secret Chamber of Commerce's higher-ups. After about half an hour of discussion, he returned to his seat before Shifeng. Based on his stern expression, he had received an answer. Guild leader Black Flame, the higher-ups have made their decision, but before I relay it, I need to ask, are you certain that you can establish Stone Forest Town in the bottomless abyss? Yuan Tiexin asked seriously. I cannot guarantee it, Shifeng said, chuckling. Do you understand what our advanced membership represents, Guild leader Black Flame? If you cannot offer us a guarantee, we cannot continue this transaction. Yuan Tiexin explained with a twisted expression. Don't be in such a rush, Elder Yuan. Although I cannot guarantee success, I can sign a contract regarding it, Shifeng said as he retrieved an empty contract. He then said, I can offer two options. If the secret Chamber of Commerce is willing to revoke Starlink's advanced membership immediately, the Chamber will gain 30% of Stone Forest Town's shares after its establishment in the bottomless abyss. I will also accept Starlink's demotion after Stone Forest Town has been moved. However, that option is only worth 20% of the town's shares. I thought you had offered 40% earlier, Black Flame. Have you changed your mind so quickly? Yuan Tixin's eyebrows twitched slightly. That was the price Zero Wing was willing to offer for advanced membership. Since we are only discussing Starlink's demotion, the price must change, Shifeng said, smiling. Do you know how much Starlink had to hand over of its fortress's shares in the ancient undead country to become an advanced member? Yuan Tixin had the urge to vomit blood when he heard Shifeng's reply. 70%. Starlink paid approximately 70% of the fortress's shares to become an advanced member, Guild leader Black Flame. On the other hand, you are only offering shares for an advanced town. Don't you think your offer is a little too weak? You also have to consider the location, Shifeng calmly replied, not budging at the slightest. The difference between a town within a regional dungeon and one without was massive, not to mention a god-mode regional dungeon. He refused to believe that the secret pavilion didn't know this difference. Shifeng would never have considered selling Stone Forest Town's shares if not for his goal to drag Starlink down and regain access to the secret Chamber of Commerce's sales channels. Once he moved Stone Forest Town to the bottomless abyss, he could gain a fortune in entrance fees alone. Although I see your reasoning, it isn't enough shares. If you're willing to increase your offer by another 20%, we can continue these negotiations. The higher-ups will not agree otherwise, Yuan Tixin said. This is the highest Zero Wing is willing to go. If you cannot accept that, then I'm afraid that there is nothing we can do. Sherfone, shaking his head. Sherfone had considered using the secret of linking NPC auction houses with player auction houses as a bargaining chip, but he couldn't afford to expose this information just yet. Every day he could maintain its secrecy was another day of advantages. In any case, he had control of Stone Forest Town's auction house, and only he could see how many people truly sold items through it. At most, players would be surprised by how many items passed through the auction house. This, Sherfang's uninterested expression rendered Yuan Tixin speechless. It was as if the man didn't mind this deal going sour. If the higher-ups hadn't been so tempted by the bottomless abyss and the idea of a guild town within the regional dungeon, including how much said town could help the secret pavilion's development, he would have already left the room. Agree to his deal. We will revoke Starlink's advanced membership immediately. Suddenly Yuan Tixin heard a solemn voice. Guild leader? Yuan Tixin's eyes drifted to the dignified man on the screen at the bottom right corner of his vision. This transaction was immensely important to the secret pavilion, so he had deliberately maintained the video call with his guild leader, allowing the man to listen in on the conversation. The loss is manageable, and I've seen Stone Forest Town before. It has developed quite smoothly thus far and has already become an advanced town. If Zero Wing can truly re-establish the town in the bottomless abyss, it will only be a matter of time before Stone Forest Town becomes a basic city. However, we need a clear time frame. If Zero Wing cannot accomplish the task within a reasonable time, it will have to compensate for our losses with the combat puppet design, the dignified man said. Yes, I understand, Yuan Tixin replied as realization dawned on him. A basic city was far more valuable than a fortress. He hadn't really thought Sherfang's offer through. Following which, he turned to the swordsman in question and said, Guild leader Black Flame, we agree to your first condition. However, you must give us a time limit. If you cannot fulfill your promise within the given time, you will have to offer the combat puppet design as compensation. This is the most the secret pavilion is willing to concede. All of the various superpowers sought their own combat puppets, which were easily as valuable as an entire fortress in the ancient undead country. That won't be a problem. Although Yuan Tixin's reply surprised Sherfone, he quickly answered the man. As for the time limit, I think 10 days should be appropriate. All right, let's sign the contract then. Yuan Tixin nodded. Both Liang Jing and Purple Jade watched the exchange in shock. With just a few words, Sherfone had guaranteed Starlink's demotion. No one would believe this if they heard it. Once Sherfone and Yuan Tixin signed the contract, the Secret Chamber of Commerce had revoked Starlink's advanced membership within less than half an hour. Although this matter had only been announced internally, news quickly spread across God's domain. Chapter 21:14 Overturning the Heavens. Chapter 21:14 Overturning the Heavens. Foggy Ghost Plains, a neutral map outside of the Black Dragon Empire. Darkness enveloped the plains throughout the year. Level 70 to 80 undead creatures with high physical resistance roamed the plains, making the area very dangerous for current players. If players weren't careful here, they could easily lose their lives. Thus, very few visited this place. However, a 20-man team currently fought more than 100 level 70-plus undead earthworms. These undead earthworms ranked between Special Elite and Lord, and a deathly aura surrounded their bodies. If players approached, they felt a chill seep into them, affecting their movements. In addition, the undead earthworms had extremely high defense, and their attacks had a corrosive effect. However, the players who faced these undead earthworms defeated one after another. The team's leader, an assassin, toyed with roughly 80 undead earthworms by himself. Like a graceful butterfly, the assassin skillfully dodged the corrosive attacks. While the assassin attracted the undead earthworms' attacks, a willowy woman bombarded the monsters with one spell after another, each dealing over -20,000 damage. Moreover, the woman timed her spells accurately to strike the undead earthworms as they launched an attack, diverting the trajectories and reducing the pressure on the assassin. After around 30 minutes, the 20-man team finally slew the last of these monsters, their bodies littering the ground alongside materials and items. The commander and vice commander sure are amazing. Without those two, these undead earthworms would have likely worn us down until we died. That's right. The stamina consumption here is ridiculous. I lost more than a quarter of my stamina in that fight alone. It's no wonder why the other adventurer teams refuse to grind here. I wish I were as capable as the commander and vice commander. I'd be able to walk through the Black Dragon Empire unhindered. With their fame and strength, they could establish a large guild in the Empire. Even superpowers have tried to recruit our adventurer team. It's a pity that the commander rejected all those offers without hesitation. When the resting members FFF adventurer team members looked at Yantianqing and Ilofe, their gazes held respect and admiration, especially the players that had recently joined the team. Not only did the undead earthworms have incredible defense, but their death aura also weakened players' combat power. Including the corrosive effect of the monster's attacks, not even MTs in top-tier equipment would dare to aggro too many at once. At most, a strong MT could handle 5 or 6 undead earthworms at a time. However, these monsters traveled in groups of 100 or more. Even a 50-man team would struggle against such a large band of monsters, not to mention a 20-man team. However, thanks to Yantianqing aggroing most of the worms and Ilofei's timely attacks, the team was able to defeat the 100-plus undead earthworms without much trouble. The only benefit to the foggy ghost plains was the high EXP its monsters granted. The leveling speed here was unmatched. After defeating a single wave of monsters, the FFF adventurer team's members had gained a visible chunk to their experience bars. It was a rare phenomenon at their levels. Suddenly, a woman in dark gray leather armor appeared before Yantianqing and Ilofei. She had a magnificent body, looking like a fairy, and her chilling aura felt like the moon in the night sky. Upon close inspection, one would discover that this woman was actually level 67. She could undoubtedly rank at the very top of the Black Dragon Empire's ranking list. Meanwhile, Yantianqing and Ilofei had failed to detect this woman's presence before she had appeared. The FFF members grew nervous due to her abrupt arrival. They were all experts, and their ability to sense others' auras was first-rate, yet they hadn't noticed this woman's approach. To make matters worse, they had never felt such a frightening aura before. They all felt as if they stood in a silent hell as this woman's aura washed over them. "Why are you here, Lotus?" Yantianqing calmly asked the peerless beauty before him. The other FFF members' jaws dropped when they heard the woman's name. Everyone in the Black Dragon Empire knew the name Lotus. It was, after all, the name of the number 1 player on the Empire's assassin ranking list. She was a legend in the Empire, and even the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion feared her. Moreover, Lotus was particularly mysterious. The public knew almost nothing about her other than her name. The reason Lotus was known as a legend in the Black Dragon Empire, and even the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion feared her so greatly, was her success in killing Martial Dragon, one of the pavilion's monster-level experts. 9 Dragons Emperor had been furious about Martial Dragon's defeat, but despite ordering a hunt for Lotus, he had accomplished nothing. In the end, 9 Dragons Emperor had been forced to abandon the hunt. The FFF adventurer team's members had certainly never expected to meet the real deal here. Moreover, their commander seemed to know this woman. "Have you considered the matter?" Lotus asked in a cold, mechanical tone. "I've already told you that I'm not interested in joining Dark Soul," Yantianqing said. "The Alliance has more resources than you can imagine. I'm sure you believe that you can continue down this path and grow stronger without relying on a superpower. I thought the same in the past, but you haven't reached that point yet. You haven't experienced what it truly feels like to reach the point where there is no road ahead. If you continue to be stubborn, the gap between us will only grow. I know that you're interested in Zero Wing, and I admit that the guild is impressive to secure White River City's auction house despite facing multiple superpowers in the competition," Lotus said, her voice deepening. "However, everyone knows what future awaits Zero Wing. After provoking so many superpowers, it is destined to perish. Furthermore, Zero Wing has almost no training resources. You'd be better off joining me in Dark Soul. Dark Soul's resources will help you improve. Do you really need to waste time on a guild that is on the verge of destruction? I've made up my mind, Yan Tianqing replied without hesitation. Zero Wing's death isn't certain yet. As long as it returns to the secret chamber of commerce, Starlink won't find the guild easy to eliminate. So what if it returns? Do you really think a guild with no background and resources can overturn the heavens? Lotus asked with a hint of disdain. But as soon as Lotus finished speaking, Iloafei gasped from beside Yan Tianqing. Commander, something has happened. Iloafei shouted after reading the message from the Flower of Seven Sins. What is it? Yan Tianqing asked, giving his vice commander an odd look. Starlink. Starlink's advanced membership has been revoked, Iloafei said, shuddering. She even wondered if this message was a fake, but since it bore the Flower of Seven Sins name, it couldn't be. How is that possible? Yan Tianqing was stunned. Has the secret pavilion lost its mind? What in the world has happened? Membership in the secret chamber of commerce was extraordinary. Revoking a basic member's status demanded an extremely high price, not to mention a power's advanced membership. The news even surprised Lotus. Becoming an advanced member in secret required an astronomical price. By demoting one of its advanced members, the chamber would lose significant profits. Why would the secret chamber of commerce willingly revoke Starlink's advanced rank? The information isn't very accurate, but based on what we currently know, I'm 90% sure that Zero Wing has something to do with it. The moment Secret reinstated Zero Wing's basic membership, it demoted Starlink. Iloafei replied hesitantly. Chapter 21:15 Realms of Refinement Legacy. Chapter 21:15 Realms of Refinement Legacy. It's Zero Wing's doing? Yan Tianqing was dazed for a long moment after hearing Iloafei's reply. He couldn't fathom what Zero Wing had done to push the secret pavilion to such a decision. That was the secret chamber of commerce's advanced membership they were talking about. Recovering from his daze, Yan Tianqing turned to Lotus. Smiling, he said, Lotus, it seems you've guessed wrong. Zero Wing is far more powerful than you imagine. Although he did not know what Zero Wing had done, it had accomplished this feat, one which would even be difficult for a superpower. Zero Wing's stamina gemstones had only been enough to cause a small upset in its war with Starlink, but now, the guild was responsible for a major setback. I've certainly underestimated Zero Wing, Lotus said. Contrary to expectations, though, she maintained a tranquil expression despite hearing that Zero Wing was responsible for Starlink's demotion. However, Zero Wing's actions will only incense Starlink further. It doesn't fully understand what Starlink is. Zero Wing has only backed itself into a corner. It's best if you don't get too close to the guild. Not even I can save you if you do. Lotus then vanished without a trace as if she had never existed. Commander, what should we do? Iloafei asked as she turned to Yan Tianqing. Zero Wing's latest accomplishment was truly frightening, but as Lotus had said, Starlink wasn't an ordinary superpower. Its background was extraordinary. If it were just some ordinary power, the secret pavilion would never have promoted it to advanced member in the secret chamber of commerce. Aside from wealth, one had to offer proof of strength to become an advanced member in secret. I'm going to Zero Wing, Yan Tianqing said, laughing. I had already decided to give up on the guild if it couldn't restore its membership in the secret chamber of commerce when the secret pavilion's people had visited Zero Wing. I might have even chosen the same path as Lotus. However, if Zero Wing could restore its membership, I inwardly swore that I would join the guild. Will you join with me? I'll follow you, Commander, Iloafei said. She could not help but sigh when she saw the determined look on Yan Tianqing's face. Good. Let's go and make the necessary preparations. Yan Tianqing felt a little more confident about his decision when Iloafei agreed to follow him. At the same time, God's domain's various powers received news of Starlink's demotion, and they could barely believe it. The various superpowers were particularly shocked. They knew how Starlink had become an advanced member in the first place. News of Starlink's demotion was even more shocking to these superpowers than hearing that one of their kind had fallen. Zero Wing is too awesome, Big Sis Rain! It actually took away Starlink's advanced membership. This has definitely dealt a severe blow to Starlink's financial development. Lu Xinglua is probably fuming right about now. Blue Phoenix, who currently occupied Thunder Island, couldn't help her joyful expression when she heard the news. First, Zero Wing had caused an uproar in the Dark Knight Empire. Then, not only had it restored its basic member status in the Secret Chamber of Commerce, but it was also responsible for revoking Starlink's advanced membership. Not even the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion was capable of such a feat, yet Zero Wing had done it. It was unbelievable. I have persuaded 7th Street to send Zero Wing another invitation to alleviate the pressure from Starlink, but it seems that effort was unnecessary. Phoenix Rain revealed a bitter smile as she looked at the report in her hands. After Zero Wing's performance in White River City's auction arena, the majority of the guild's senior elders now stood on her side. Not only had this significantly increased her authority within the guild, but it had given her access to more resources, as well. Only then had she qualified to persuade a major chamber of commerce like 7th Street. In the end, however, her efforts had been wasted. She had watched Zero Wing closely since the guild had begun to grow, yet the more she looked at it, the more mysterious it seemed. Now that Starlink has lost its advanced membership, Nine Dragons Emperor will likely shelve his plans of using Zero Wing's financial issues to cause trouble, Blue Phoenix said, smiling. Indeed. He will also have to rethink whether or not he wants to continue targeting Zero Wing. After all, Zero Wing has firmly secured the Secret Pavilion's support, otherwise, it wouldn't have demoted Starlink for the guild, Phoenix Rain said after giving the matter some thought. Now, it's just a matter of time before Zero Wing's development skyrockets. She had had a headache over trying to figure out preventative measures against Nine Dragons Emperor's little tricks against her and Zero Wing, but now, her fellow Pavilion Master would have to think twice before causing mischief for a future Titan in God's domain. Regardless of the man's personal feelings, the guild's senior elders wouldn't agree to his tactics. Very few of those elders still stood with Nine Dragons Emperor. If he lost their support as well, he could kiss any chances of becoming the great Pavilion Master goodbye. While the various powers discussed the latest development, Shifeng and his people had become quite busy. Although Zero Wing's financial troubles hadn't been resolved yet, its success in taking Starlink down a notch had elevated the guild's overall morale. The guild's atmosphere had lightened, and Star Moon Kingdom's various powers had settled down. Moreover, the well-known adventurer teams that hadn't previously been interested in the guild now swarmed to Zero Wing's residence to negotiate partnership deals or join the guild altogether. This increased the amount of work Shifeng, Zero Wing's guild leader, had to do. Guild leader Unyielding Soul has contacted us, asking for an alliance. They want to confront Starlink by our side. They're prepared to offer us a large number of credits and a portion of their realms of refinement training resources. These assets should be enough to sustain our internal management and training for quite a while. In return, however, they want 150 stamina gemstones and 3,000 exotic stamina potions, Aqua Rose excitedly reported. Zero Wing desperately needed credits, not coins or magic crystals. The guild's real-world headquarters required a lot of money to maintain, and Zero Wing had been supplying the necessary funds by selling items and equipment for credits thus far. However, due to Starlink's financial attacks, Zero Wing had lost as much as 80% of its daily credit income. Because of Zero Wing's rapid development, the guild continued to gain new members, including internal members. Shifeng could have resolved his guild's need for credits by selling virtual stores in Zero Wing's territories, but he refused to sell these stores or offer long-term leases. Almost no corporation was willing to spend so many credits on a virtual store in Zero Wing's territory as a result. Unyielding Soul is willing to share its realms of refinement training resources? The news surprised Shifeng. All right, tell them that we'll agree to the alliance. However, we can only offer 60 stamina gemstones and 1,000 exotic stamina potions up front. If we give them any more than that, we won't have enough for our own purposes. Training resources were extremely important to any power, and they happened to be what Zero Wing needed most right now. Normally, a guild would have a well-equipped training facility by the time it secured first-rate rank. However, while guilds' facilities might have the same quality, there was a massive difference in the data each facility accumulated. The various large guilds relied on this data to nurture their internal experts. This training information was a guild's lifeline. This was especially true for superpowers. Typically, no one would willingly sell this data. At most, they might trade some information with other superpowers. Although Zero Wing had acquired Ouroboros' training facilities and data, Ouroboros had only been a first-rate guild. Even after combining Ouroboros' many years of research with God's domain's resources, nurturing refinement realms was still extremely difficult for Zero Wing, not to mention experts with even greater combat standards. If Zero Wing could gain access to a fraction of a super first-rate guild's training data, nurturing refinement realm experts would become considerably easier. I'll send a reply right away. Aqua Rose understood how important this matter was, as well, so she was excited to hear Shifeng's agreement. The secret pavilion's training system was a large part of the reason that she had improved so quickly and reached her current standards. However, Zero Wing had a limited number of slots for the training system. Thus, just the thought of Zero Wing gaining its own realms of refinement legacy thrilled her. The two guilds settled their negotiations very quickly, forming an alliance. This outcome significantly alleviated the pressure on Zero Wing, and the smaller guild received a portion of Unyielding Soul's realms of refinement legacy. Once this matter had been settled, Shifeng accepted the Hero Crusade quest and led Zero Wing's main force toward the Falling Star secret land, the Lord of Fire's home. As far as the public was concerned, Zero Wing already qualified to contend with Starlink, but Shifeng knew this was only temporary. Starlink controlled 3 NPC auction houses and had far more territory than Zero Wing. As players reached higher levels, Starlink's advantages would only become more prominent. Shifeng had laid the foundation for his guild, but because of the massive difference between the two guilds' starting points, Zero Wing had no hope of quickly catching up to Starlink. Furthermore, Starlink wasn't Zero Wing's only enemy. There were plenty of other powers eyeing Shifeng's guild. If he didn't link White River City's auction house to Stone Forest towns quickly and allowed the two to transform, Zero Wing would never be able to contend with Superpower's financial prowess. Meanwhile, the moment Shifeng's team entered the Falling Star secret land, everyone on his team, excluding himself, gasped. This secret land looked like an entirely different world. Craters of various sizes pocked the barren canyon before them, and meteors occasionally fell from the sky, decimating the ground. The resulting shockwaves were so powerful they could likely kill players in an instant. Moreover, the monsters in the area ranged from level 70 to 75, and the weakest were Lord rank Laval giants, while most of these monsters were High Lords or Grand Lords. These monsters also traveled in groups of 10 or more. This place was even more frightening than a 100-man, Helm Mode team dungeon. An ordinary 100-man Tier 2 team would likely meet its end after venturing a few steps into the area. Fortunately, Zero Wing's main force was far stronger than any ordinary team. With his fragmented legendary shield, Kola alone could easily tank 4 or 5 level 70+ Grand Lords at the same time. And with Turtledove, Yiwunyan, and the other MT's assistance, these monsters posed no threat to Zero Wing's team. On the contrary, this was nothing but an EXP farm to Zero Wing's members. Although the Falling Star secret land had plenty of monsters, none of them could stop Shifeng's team, which carried a large number of epic weapons and equipment pieces. After 4 hours or so of fighting, the team reached the secret land's inner region. Guild leader, I found a tattered altar guarded by monsters. There's a treasure chest on it. It seems to be an inferior legendary treasure chest. Flying Shadow, who had been tasked to scout the area, suddenly reported in the team chat. An inferior legendary treasure chest? Shifeng could not help but find the discovery odd. As far as he could remember, the Falling Star secret land shouldn't even have an epic treasure chest, much less an inferior legendary treasure chest. We'll head there immediately. Shifeng led his team to the coordinates Flying Shadow had given him. The altar had a total of 3 floors, each roughly 10 meters high, and radiated an intense divine might. A magic barrier surrounded the altar as well. If not for this barrier, Shifeng had no doubt that the altar's divine might would have even made movement impossible. What? It's real? Shock colored Shifeng's features as he stared at the treasure chest glowing on the altar. Chapter 21:16 Another Inferior Legendary Treasure Chest. Chapter 21:16 Another Inferior Legendary Treasure Chest. Although the treasure chest's orange glow was very faint, Zero Wing's members audibly gulped when they saw it. An inferior legendary treasure chest had a high chance of dropping a fragmented legendary item. While most guilds in the game had very little idea of a fragmented legendary item's true value, Zero Wing's core upper echelons were no strangers to the rare items, particularly Cola, Fire Dance, Gentle Snow, and Zhao Yueru, who all owned their own fragmented legendary items. A single fragmented legendary item was enough to elevate a player to peak expert status. Such items were precisely the reason that Cola and the others could suppress peak experts. Without them, these four wouldn't have been able to defeat a single peak expert even if they worked together, and had the same basic attributes as their opponent. In fact, if not for fragmented legendary items, Zero Wing would have needed another 3 to 5 years to have any hope of contending with the various superpowers. Why is an inferior legendary treasure chest here? Shifeng stared at the treasure chest on the altar with narrowed eyes, confused. He had visited the Falling Star secret land dozens of times during his previous life, but he had never heard or seen of this altar, not to mention the treasure chest on it. Moreover, it was an inferior legendary treasure chest. The only inferior legendary treasure chest Shifeng had ever seen was in the fallen Arkansas. He hadn't even heard of another inferior legendary treasure chest. Yet, now, he had stumbled across an inferior legendary treasure chest in the Falling Star secret land. Could the Falling Star secret land have secrets I don't know about? Shifeng wondered. In the past, the only noteworthy thing anyone had found in the Falling Star secret land was the Lord of Fire. Once the Lord of Fire had been slain, the secret land had become a land of death. Even monsters had stopped spawning. Moreover, the altar's divine might was extraordinary. This definitely hadn't been constructed by mortals, but by ancient gods. Guild leader, should we work our way toward it? Aqua Rose asked, unable to pull her gaze away from the inferior legendary treasure chest. Although there were around 500 level 72 and level 73 Lord-ranked lava hounds roaming around the altar, these monsters were easy pickings for Zero Wing's main force. It wouldn't take long to clear out the area. Wait a minute, Shifeng said. He then activated Omniscient Eyes and inspected every lava hound in the area. In God's domain, caution was necessary when encountering a treasure that didn't match its location's quality. A slight mishap could potentially be fatal, and that lethality would affect players' careers in God's domain. Normally, players would only encounter situations like this after visiting level 150+ maps. To encounter such circumstances in a map below level 100 was simply unheard of. Of course, better safe than sorry. Lava Hound, Ilaka's avatar, elemental creature, Lord. Level 72. HP 24, 000/24 000. A hidden title? Shifeng very quickly noticed something peculiar. When inspecting these monsters with an ordinary identification skill, players would only see ordinary lava hounds, but with Omniscient Eyes, these lava hounds had an additional title. Ilaka's avatar? Sure enough, this is a trap. A trap? Fire Dance gave Shifeng an odd look before asking. But I've already inspected the area and didn't discover any traps. Before the full team had arrived, she had scouted both the altar and its surroundings, but she hadn't discovered any traps, magical or physical. Her disarm had already reached master rank. Even if she couldn't disarm Grandmaster traps, she could easily detect them. This isn't your ordinary trap, Shifeng said, laughing. He then said, Fire, lead an assassin party and find a way to lure these lava hounds 100 yards away from the altar. Remember, do not kill a single lava hound. Now Sherfone, more or less, realized why no one had mentioned this altar or the inferior legendary treasure chest it held in the past. Ilak was one of the Purgatory World's 4 kings, known as the King of Death. Ilak was a bona fide Tier 5 world boss. During the war between worlds in Sherfeng's previous life, the Purgatory World had been one of the worlds the various guilds had invaded. However, the guilds had suffered a miserable defeat against Ilak. Despite sending 25 Tier 5 experts to raid the world boss, the King of Death had slain them all in one move. It had been horrific. If a Tier 6 God-ranked expert hadn't made an emergency appearance on the battlefield, every player in that war would have been annihilated. Even though the various large guilds had eventually killed Ilak, they had sacrificed tens of thousands of expert players to do so, including more than 100 Tier 5 Apex experts. Tier 4 experts had been of little use in the raid. Knowing that the lava hounds around the altar were Ilaka's avatars, Sherfone realized that this altar was Ilaka's treasury. Treasuries like this would appear in God's domain randomly. Players would only have one opportunity to claim these treasuries' items. If they killed Ilaka's avatars, Ilak would discover the transgression. If Ilak didn't arrive personally, he would send a doppelganger. Even if this doppelganger were 1 tier lower than the world boss and only level 70, players still couldn't afford to challenge it. Not only would every Zero-Wing member in the area die, but Ilak would also move his treasury to a different location. Although such occurrences were rare in God's domain, Sherfone had heard of a few instances. After Sherfone finished issuing commands, Fire Dance led a party of assassins to lure away the lava hounds around the altar. Once the last lava hound was more than 100 yards away from the altar, the magic barrier around it shattered. A boundless divine might gushed past the broken barrier, and Zero-Wing's members felt much heavier. Seeing this, Sherfone activated Gale Domain and flew straight toward the altar. As he drew closer, he encountered stronger divine might. Eventually, the pressure was so powerful that his flying speed slowed to a crawl. As Sherfone came within 50 yards of the altar, he didn't have the strength to move forward. Gritting his teeth, Sherfone activated Heavenly Dragon's power, his strength skyrocketing. He then continued toward the inferior legendary treasure chest, 1 inch at a time. As a Tier 5 world boss, Ilak was only a step away from becoming a god. Obtaining such a being's treasure wouldn't be easy. Not only were the lava hounds guarding this altar Ilaka's avatars, but they were also the energy source that protected the treasury. These lava hounds powered the magic array that protected the treasury, maintained its presence here, and sealed the divine might the treasury radiated. Without this energy source, the magic array would fade. Once it was gone, not only would the treasury's divine might be released, but it would also destabilize space around it. The treasury would forcibly return to its original space after no more than 30 seconds. In other words, Sherfone only had 30 seconds to retrieve the inferior legendary treasure chest once the avatars had been lured away. However, Sherfeng's speed was painfully slow, even after activating Heavenly Dragon's power. It felt as if some gigantic beast desperately pulled him back. Blade Liberation. With less than 20 seconds remaining, Sherfone abandoned all hesitation and activated Twofold Berserker. With Twofold Berserk, Sherfeng's strength could rival a mythic monster's of the same level. He accelerated slightly, but he still felt slower than an ordinary player's walking speed. As the seconds ticked by, Sherfone inched closer to the inferior legendary treasure chest. 20 yards. 10 yards. 5 yards. Sherfeng's remaining time continued to decrease. 15 seconds. 12 seconds. 10 seconds. When only 10 seconds remained, space around the altar began to shatter. Just as the altar began to fade, Sherfone finally placed his hand on the treasure chest. "Collect!" Sherfone shouted. Collecting an inferior legendary treasure chest required 8 seconds, and Sherfone tensed as he watched the loading bar. The altar's base had already disappeared, and the middle section had begun to fade away. Just as the treasure chest began to disappear, the sound of a system notification reached Sherfeng's ears. Chapter 2117 Forgotten Set. Chapter 2117 Forgotten Set. System: Inferior legendary treasure chest has been stored in bag space. System: a powerful spell has been cast on this inferior legendary treasure chest. The treasure chest will drop upon death and cannot be opened within the Falling Star secret land. System: the King of Death has learned of the robbery and sealed off the Falling Star secret land. All monsters in the area have been enhanced. How vicious! Sherfone did not know whether to cry or laugh after hearing the 3 system notifications. He had thought that he had secured the inferior legendary chest, getting away scot-free, but it seemed that the trap still closed around him. Now that a lock had sealed off the Falling Star secret land, players had only 2 means of escape. The first method required dying and resurrecting in the nearest graveyard. The second way was to kill the Lord of Fire. The Lord of Fire was the Falling Star secret land's overlord, serving as the land's power source. If this boss died, the secret land wouldn't be able to maintain any life. Then, the seal on the map would lift. However, due to the inferior legendary treasure chest, the secret land's monsters had grown stronger, including the Lord of Fire. The Lord of Fire was already stronger than ordinary mythic monsters since his territory was a secret land. Now that the seal around the area enhanced the monsters here, the boss had likely grown as powerful as a mythic-ranked archaic species. Although players' combat and equipment standards had improved a lot, dealing with mythic monsters was still a challenge. Even the various superpowers relied on magic arrays and numerous attempts when raiding a mythic monster. Not even an MT with a fragmented legendary shield would last long against a mythic-ranked archaic species. Fortunately, players were permitted to use summoning spells they had learned in secret lands, although they couldn't use items that summon monsters. It seems we'll have to level up before raiding the Lord of Fire. Sherfone concluded after calming down. An inferior legendary treasure chest was worth far more than an ordinary fragmented legendary item. Based on their current situation, the system wanted his team to earn the treasure chest. Fortunately, he wasn't on a time limit to kill the Lord of Fire. Although he had a 10-day arrangement with the secret pavilion, moving Stone Forest Town to the bottomless abyss wouldn't be difficult. As long as players had the necessary status and 6,000 mana stones, it could easily be accomplished. Only, current players did not know how to transfer a town. The true difficulty would be acquiring the 6,000 mana stones. 6,000 mana stones was an astronomical amount to God's domain's current powers. Even with the Philosopher's Stone, Sherfone would need 300,000 magic crystals to synthesize so many mana stones. Even superpowers would have a hard time sacrificing such a large number of magic crystals. However, the task wouldn't be difficult for Zero Wing. Aside from the Manatite Vein in the Sea of Death, Zero Wing had the Source Fire Vein in the Flame Demon's Valley. Although the guild could only send a small number of players to mine the Source Fire Vein, those players could collect a considerable number of magic crystals each day. Overall, not even ordinary superpowers could match Zero Wing's magic crystal income. After deducting daily expenses and including the stockpile Zero Wing currently possessed, collecting 300,000 magic crystals within 10 days would not be a problem. When Zero Wing's members saw the inferior legendary treasure chest in Sherfeng's possession, they breathed a sigh of relief, especially Fire Dance and the other fragmented legendary item wielders. If Zero Wing secured another fragmented legendary item, the guild would have one more peak expert, which was something it desperately needed right now. Bad news, guild leader. Thousands of monsters have appeared around us. Most of them are level 72 plus Great Lords, with quite a few Grand Lords mixed in. They're all heading straight for us. Minor Wind, who acted as the team's lookout, quickly reported. Already? Looking at the map Minor Wind had shared with the team, Sherfone noticed a large number of red dots. So many level 72 plus Great Lords and Grand Lords could easily capture a guild town. Not daring to be careless, Sherfone led his team toward the Falling Star secret land's central area. He had just activated twofold Berserk, so he was still in a weakened state. He would have normally hidden from these monsters, but now, although Sherfone was being particularly careful, Great Lord Lava Giants roamed the path to the map's core. Eventually, Sherfong and his team had to stop and deal with these monsters. MTs hated lava monsters more than any other. These monsters' attacks could reduce their target's defense, and although each attack only dropped players' defense by 5% for 10 seconds, the debuff stacked. After a little over half an hour, Sherfeng's team defeated the dozen or so lava giants they had encountered, but as the team began to move out, several glowing items appeared on the ground. It surprised Sherfeng. What? This is level 70 secret silver equipment? Sherfeng's surprise grew into astonishment after he inspected one of the dropped equipment pieces. Could this be a result of the monster's enhancement? The Falling Star secret land had a high monster population, and they were stronger than average monsters. However, since these monsters didn't drop loot, the Falling Star secret land had only become a good leveling area for players during Sherfeng's previous life. If these monsters had dropped equipment, this secret land would have become a sacred grinding spot. Although secret silver equipment was average, the several pieces that had dropped from the lava giants were level 70 equipment. The various major powers had barely begun to collect level 65 equipment, much less level 70. It was easy to imagine how valuable these pieces were. The attributes on these level 70 secret silver boots are amazing. Their defense is even higher than level 65 dark gold boots. They also reduce stamina consumption by 3%. If my current boots didn't have better basic attribute bonuses, I'd equip these in a heartbeat. Yu Wenyan exclaimed as he inspected the level 70 secret silver boots attributes Sherfeng had shared in the team chat. Those are nothing. Look at what I picked up, Blackie said, delighted as he shared a cloth armor's attribute panel. Everyone was stunned when they saw the item's information. Secret silver set equipment. Although the cloth armor was also level 70 secret silver rank, it was a part of the Forgotten set, a 4-piece set equipment. Moreover, this set focused on reducing stamina consumption. When wearing all 4 pieces, players' stamina consumption would drop by 30%. The cloth armor was far more valuable than the level 70 secret silver plate armor boots. The resources in neutral maps were tempting enough that most current players searched for a way to develop in these areas. However, neutral maps had harsh environments that placed a heavy burden on players' stamina. But as luck would have it, neutral maps were home to plenty of field bosses that dropped plenty of rare materials and items, including skill books, designs, and recipes. However, the various large guilds were helpless against these field bosses. That difficulty wasn't due to these field bosses' immense power or players' lack of basic attributes, but because they could increase players' stamina consumption. As a result, many raids on these field bosses failed because players ran out of stamina. Meanwhile, level 70 secret silver set equipment that could reduce stamina consumption was far more valuable than level 70 fine gold set equipment with elemental resistances. When Zero Wings players thought about the monsters in this area dropping set equipment that reduced stamina consumption, their hearts raced. Aqua, make the necessary arrangements. We won't be venturing to the map's core just yet. First, we'll get rid of these lava giants. We'll advance once we're done, Sherfeng said after giving the matter some thought. Equipment that reduced stamina consumption was even rarer than equipment that provided universal resistance. Although Sherfeng knew how to obtain a few such pieces of equipment, they were located in level 100+ neutral maps. In any case, his team members needed to level up before they could raid the Lord of Fire. Since these great Lord-ranked lava giants dropped equipment, and set equipment that reduced stamina consumption, he wouldn't miss this opportunity. They might not have this chance once they killed the Lord of Fire. If they could collect enough equipment to arm a 100-man team, Zero Wing could use the many field bosses in neutral maps as a personal ATM. Chapter 21:18 Qualitative Transformation. Chapter 21:18 Qualitative Transformation. When the seal around the Falling Star secret land had enhanced the map's monsters, it had also drastically increased the number of great Lord-ranked lava giants in the secret land. Zero Wing's members felt as if there were no end to these monsters as they continued to grind in the inner region. Only after 8 days of constant grinding did they finally clear out most of the lava giants in the inner region. However, they had to admit that the Falling Star Secret Land was an excellent leveling spot. When Zero Wings members had first arrived in the Secret Land, they had been level 66, but after 8 days of grinding, every team member had reached level 70. Even the various superpowers experts would be jealous of their leveling speed. As for Sherfone, he had leveled up from 72 to 74. However, these players' increased attributes were far more significant than their higher levels. Every 5 levels was a minor turning point in God's domain, and as Zero Wings members leveled up, their epic and fragmented legendary items rose with them. Now that they had reached level 70, these items' attribute bonuses had received a small boost. If this team had been powerful when they had fought the various superpowers experts in White River City's auction arena, they were monstrous now, especially Fire Dance, Gentle Snow, Zhao Yueru, and Cola. The team had also collected 11 cloth armor forgotten sets, 9 leather armor off-track sets, and 8 plate armor Earth Vein sets over the last 8 days. They had also collected more than 900 pieces of standalone mysterious iron and secret silver equipment. Their harvest was many times more bountiful than grinding in Hell Mode team dungeons for the same amount of time. At this moment, Zero Wings members ganged up on an 8-meter-tall Grand Lord ranked lava beast in the deserted canyon. The lava beast bellowed in rage as its HP continued to fall under Zero Wings' bombardment. When the lava beast was close to death, Fire Dance maneuvered behind the monster and used Absolute Strike to obliterate the last strand of the Grand Lord's HP. Her actions were so smooth that even her teammates were stunned. As the level 74 lava beast crumbled into a pile of scorching rubble, everyone's experience bars rose by a small chunk. "These lava beasts are really a challenge," Turtledove complained as she looked at her HP bar. Currently, she had less than 1/3 of her HP remaining, and her defense had fallen by 85%. With so little defense left, she took more than minus 70,000 damage just from blocking one of the lava beast's attacks with her shield. Unfortunately, due to the monster's massive frame, every one of the lava beast's attacks had a large AoE. As a result, the lava beast didn't need special techniques to prevent its targets from dodging. If the team's 3 main MTs hadn't rotated tanking the lava beast, defeating the Grand Lord would have been impossible. "They are certainly tough. Its lava shield reduced out magical damage by half, too. Fortunately, we have good equipment. Any other team from our guild wouldn't likely be a match for it," Aqua Rose said as she looked at the dead lava beast. The lava beast had a whopping 100 million HP, and its battle recovery regenerated 2% of its HP every 5 seconds, double that of other monsters. If these players hadn't had high enough DPS, they would have been helpless against the lava beast. Although the lava beast had been difficult to defeat, it had given Zero Wings players a surprise after its death. This one lava beast had dropped more than a dozen items. Its drop rate was many times higher than the lava giants the team had faced earlier. "Guild leader, how is it? Did any set equipment drop?" Blackie asked, giving Sherfone an expectant look as he inspected the loot. This was the first time they had fought a lava beast, but no matter how Blackie looked at it, the lava beast should have dropped better loot than the Great Lord ranked lava giants since it was a Grand Lord. "There's no set equipment, but it did drop something interesting. Here, take a look for yourself," Sherfone said as he shared the item he had appraised in the team chat. Only 3 of the dozen or so items the lava beast had dropped were equipment pieces, and they were all level 70 fine gold rank. Although these 3 pieces reduced stamina consumption, they weren't quite as powerful as the level 70 secret silver set equipment. However, these 3 pieces of fine gold equipment weren't the highlight of the lava beast's loot. Rather, it was a skill book for super recovery. Super recovery, super spell. Instantly heals all allied players within a 30-yard radius for 40% of their stamina and increases stamina recovery rate by 200% and basic attributes by 15% for the next 1 hour. Cooldown, 12 hours. Class restriction, Cleric. What a powerful spell! Blackie's eyes nearly fell from their sockets after reading the spell's description. Not only did this spell regenerate stamina and heal players, but it also increased its target's basic attributes. With this spell, A 100-man team could easily explore neutral maps without worrying about their stamina. Aqua Rose was just as astonished. Many of the required materials for producing resistance equipment and high-ranked potions could only be found in neutral maps. Collecting these materials was one of the main reasons that the various major powers had been trying desperately to explore neutral maps, all to prepare for the fight for first clear in the level 70+, super large-scale team dungeons in these neutral maps. Not only would a guild become more popular and collect more top-tier equipment by securing one of these team dungeons first clear, but it would also earn a town-building order, enabling the guild to construct a new guild town in a neutral map. It was the equivalent of securing a neutral map's management rights. There were only a limited number of kingdoms and empires around neutral maps. With control over a neutral map, a guild would have a tough time not growing stronger. "We should let Violet learn this skill book," Sherfong said. The rest of the team agreed with his decision. Only members of the cleric class could learn super recovery, and Violet Cloud was the guild's #1 cleric. Moreover, she constantly traveled with the guild's main force or led her own team when exploring neutral maps. The spell was perfect for her. After Violet Cloud learned super recovery, Sherfong continued to grind lava giants for EXP with his team. He also instructed Fire Dance and her assassin party to split up in search of more lava beasts. If they were lucky, they might be able to obtain a few more super recovery skill books. While Zero Wing's main force continued to grind lava giants and level up, Melancholic Smile called Sherfong. "Has something happened?" Sherfong asked when he saw Melancholic Smile's anxious expression. "Guild leader, Starlink has captured the Ore Empire's or Blood Fortress. Not long after that, our members started to run into ambushes in the various neutral maps, especially our teams in the Ore Empire's inner region. Our casualties are severe. I wanted to as Unyielding Soul for reinforcements, but it seems that it's in a similar predicament. Starlink has basically started an all-out war with Unyielding Soul in the neutral maps bordering the Dark Knight Empire," Melancholic Smile reported. It's no wonder why Starlink hadn't responded. So, it was planning a massive assault in secret, Sherfong thought as realization dawned. He had to admit that Starlink's latest move dealt a painful blow to Zero Wing. At this point, Zero Wing's influence permeated Starmoon Kingdom. Since the guild had regained its status as a basic member in the Secret Chamber of Commerce, almost no power could shake Zero Wing in its own kingdom. Knowing this, Starlink must have decided to take a more forceful approach and establish a foundation in the Ore Empire. Now that it controlled a fortress in the Empire, it could dispatch a large number of experts, using its numerical advantage to extinguish Zero Wing in the Ore Empire and other neutral maps around Starmoon Kingdom. Furthermore, Starlink had solidified its position as the Dark Knight Empire's overlord. Other powers would have a very difficult time threatening its position, so it could afford to send a large group of experts abroad. And now that its position in the Ore Empire was stable, it wouldn't have to worry about its experts' development in the Empire. Although Zero Wing had the Guardian Puppets and Hell Tanks, these war weapons were only suitable for large-scale combat. With how few of these war weapons Zero Wing had, protecting its members across massive neutral maps would be impossible. "Guild leader, what should we do?" Melancholic Smile asked. "Tell everyone to stay together for now. If needed, spend some magic crystals and send our members through the Otherworld Gate to level up. For now, we'll disregard developing in neutral maps," Sherfong responded after giving the matter some thought. "We'll make further arrangements once I've finished my quest here." "Understood." Melancholic Smile nodded. After disconnecting the call, Sherfong gathered his team, and they made their way toward the Lord of Fire. As for leveling up and grinding for equipment, they were out of time. The Falling Star Secret Land's core was a molten hell. Only a few boulders still stood among the lava, barely large enough to hold 30 players. Meanwhile, a 50-meter-tall figure, made of flowing lava, lay among the liquid stone. The mountain-like figure radiated a frightening pressure that deterred any lava monster from approaching. "Guild leader, are we really going to fight this boss?" Blackie could not help his bitter smile as he looked at the lava giant. The rest of the team expressed similar reactions. The word strong was no longer appropriate for this lava giant. This thing was practically invincible to current players. Lord of Fire, King of Flames, Elemental Creature, Ancient Fiend, Mythic, Level 75. HP 580 000 000/580 000 000. Chapter 2119 Secret Lands Lord. Chapter 2119 Secret Lands Lord. Or Empire, on a vast plain a short distance away from the Or capital city dash. Lacking the usual patrolling oars, this was the safest location near the Or capital city. Practically every power intending to explore the city had set up a campsite to shelter its members. A power that had recently arrived occupied a large plot of land in the crowded plain, but despite this power selfishly taking up so much area, none of the other powers dared to comment. This power was none other than Starlink, a superpower that even the various super guilds feared. As a 100-man team approached Starlink's campsite, it attracted the attention of every player around. Every member on this team rode a pitch-black, 3-meter-tall bear. The mounts looked imposing and majestic, even from afar. Moreover, these mounted players were all level 67 or above, and they radiated an intense bloodlust and moved like well-trained soldiers. To top it off, the weakest piece of equipment these players wore was level 65 fine gold rank. The surrounding players recognized that the pressure they felt from this 100-man team wasn't simply due to a difference in basic attributes, but a difference in life ratings. Players felt stifled as the middle-aged man in the lead passed by. This man felt like a ferocious beast, and they knew he would shred them to pieces if they moved in the slightest. "Guild leader, who is that? He looks somewhat familiar, but I can't place him." Purple Eye, who rested in the Star Alliance's campsite, asked as she watched the stalwart man enter Starlink's campsite. "Of course, you find him familiar. He came from a destroyed kingdom on God's domain's western continent. You might not know his name, Startled Wind, but I'm sure you've heard his nickname, Mad Beast," Galaxy Pass said, a hint of fear flashing in his eyes as he watched the man pass. "I would never have thought that Starlink would recruit that lunatic. I'm afraid that Zero Wing may be in danger this time." "He's that Mad Beast?" The revelation surprised Purple Jade. Players on the eastern continent might not have heard of Mad Beast since the two continents didn't have much interaction, but as a first-rate guild's upper echelon, Purple Jade had heard of some matters concerning the western continent. According to her sources, Mad Beast was famous for shaking the western continent. With a single adventurer team, he had destroyed a superpower's kingdom. The various superpowers just didn't have the power to stop that lunatic. Galaxy Past wasn't the only player to recognize Mad Beast. Many of the guild upper echelons in the area noticed the man. As expected of Starlink, it has even recruited the Mad Beast. It's no wonder why the various superpowers are so afraid of the guild. Since Zero Wing made Starlink a laughingstock in front of the other superpowers, it's definitely doomed. I wonder what Mad Beast plans on doing to Starmoon Kingdom. Hopefully, he isn't too ruthless. I don't want to suffer alongside Zero Wing. Startled Wind's appearance sparked many discussions among the resting players. As Startled Wind arrived in Starlink's campsite, 3 Kills, Starlink's 4th Vice Guild leader, moved to welcome the man. "Brother Wind, long time no see. It is truly wonderful that you are willing to help us out," 3 Kills said. He couldn't help his inward sigh when he felt Startled Wind's aura. 3 Kills and Startled Wind were old acquaintances. They had even made their debut in the virtual gaming world around the same time. Only 3 Kills had been supported by the Super Guild, Jormungandr, while Startled Wind hadn't had any backing. Now, however, Startled Wind's nickname, Mad Beast, had spread across the western continent. He had even become Starlink's 2nd Vice Guild leader. 3 Kills, on the other hand, was only Starlink's 4th Vice Guild leader. "I understand that the guild leader wants to remove any trace of Zero Wing from God's domain. Since I've come, Zero Wing will meet its end," Startled Wind said. "However, the Zero Wing members I've killed on my way here don't seem overly impressive. To think that the 4 shadow demons actually lost against these people, those 4 old men have truly fallen." Brother Wind, Zero Wing hasn't yet dispatched its true experts. The guild also has its combat puppets and held tanks. A fight with Zero Wing won't be easy. 3 Kills explained. Zero Wing's true experts and combat puppets? Interesting. I wonder whose blade is sharper, Zero Wing's or mine? Startled Wind said as he licked his lips, excitement flashing in his eyes. Since Zero Wing's experts refuse to meet me, we'll make them show themselves. I've heard that Zero Wing has a town in the Or Empire. I think my men and I will pay it a visit. Following which, Startled Wind spun on his heel and led his men towards Silverwing Town. Meanwhile, Sherphone watched the slumbering Lord of Fire in silence for a moment in the Falling Star Secret Land's core. Why is he so much stronger? Sherphone felt a headache begin to brew as he looked at the boss's attribute panel. The original Lord of Fire had already been much stronger than ordinary mythic monsters, but now that he had become an ancient fiend, not even a 100-man team of Tier 3 peak experts would have much of a chance of defeating him, much less a 100-man team of Tier 2 experts. Ancient fiends' life ratings could rival ferocious beasts, overlords in God's domain during ancient times. Sherphone had only killed the Flame Demon King due to his quest drastically reducing its strength, but this Lord of Fire was at his peak. Now, however, the Lord of Fire was at the peak of his strength. Even a 1,000-man team filled with experts of the same level would fall quickly to the Lord of Fire. No, something's not right. Sherphone quickly noticed the glowing, golden divine runes hovering around the Lord of Fire's body. Those runes were gradually merging with the boss's form. As far as Sherphone could remember, the Lord of Fire shouldn't have bombed any divine runes. Moreover, the boss's aura was growing stronger, albeit very slowly. Is he in the middle of an evolution? Although God's domain's boss monsters rarely evolved, it wasn't unheard of. Generally, these evolutions only happened after players triggered certain events, but the process wasn't easy to complete. Boss monsters normally needed half a month to evolve successfully. Of course, there had been cases of bosses completing the evolution in 2 or 3 days. Quick! Everyone move together! Sherphone hurriedly shouted. Chapter 21:20 Time waits for no one. Chapter 21:20 Time waits for no one. When Sherphone realized that the Lord of Fire was in the midst of an evolution, he gathered his team and began the raid on the ancient fiend. Sherphone had Kola, who wore the Flame Demon's crown, act as lead MT, while Turtledove and Yi Wumian offered support from the sides. He instructed the rest of the team to stand by the Lord of Fire's sides and wait for his command. Sherfeng's urgency confused his teammates, but when they thought about how they could only leave the Falling Star Secret Land by killing the Lord of Fire or dying themselves, they obediently approached the boss. Go! Sherphone commanded once his players were in position. Leading the charge, Kola dashed toward the slumbering Lord of Fire. Although molten lava covered the ground, the high fire resistance the Flame Demon's crown provided made the lava feel like seawater to Kola. Kola soon arrived before the Lord of Fire and slashed at the ancient fiend with his sword. Minus 13,745. As the Lord of Fire received damage, he opened his eyes, releasing a blinding, golden light. The boss's deafening bellow then echoed across the burning field. The delay surprised Zero Wing's players. Normally, bosses attacked once players were within a certain range, but the Lord of Fire had only moved after Kola had attacked. Something was definitely wrong here. With a roar, the intensity of the Lord of Fire's aura skyrocketed. The divine runes around his body began to glow brighter, as if they were manifesting fully. Sure enough, he's trying to evolve. Sherphone could not help but smile. Everyone, attack with everything you've got. Be careful of the fire rain and lava on the ground. Do not kill any of the lava monsters that emerge no matter what. Just lure them to the side. In God's domain, monsters were at their weakest when trying to evolve, but if they were in danger, they could quicken their evolution forcefully. Although they had to pay an extremely high price to do so, they would become significantly more difficult to deal with once their evolution completed. After Sherphone issued his orders, he sacrificed 7,000 magic crystal to his Ring of Gospel and activated Miniature World and Ring of Brilliance. The moment Miniature World took effect, the world's power began to suppress the boss. Unfortunately, the Lord of Fire was still an ancient fiend, and as a result, he only lost 20% of his basic attributes. His strength was still far higher than any ordinary mythic monster. Following which, the Lord of Fire jabbed at Kola's raised shield. Upon impact, Kola stumbled 4 steps backward, losing more than 80,000 HP. He's so weak? Kola was surprised to lose so little HP. He had more than 240,000 maximum HP. An attack that dealt a little over minus 80,000 damage was well within his tolerance. The team's healers might feel a little overworked, at most. Don't hold back. Activate your berserk skills immediately. We need to kill the boss before he completes his evolution. As Sherfone watched the divine runes around the Lord of Fire continue to form, he estimated that they had less than 20 minutes before the boss completed his evolution. Every second counted right now. If they tried to fight the Lord of Fire like they usually did, they wouldn't defeat the boss in time. Once the ancient fiend completed his evolution, he could easily annihilate every one of them, even if he only had 1% of his HP remaining. Hearing Shifeng's command, every member of the team activated their berserk skills and doubled their DPS. Now, their attacks dealt a minimum of minus 40,000 damage. Gentle Snow, Fire Dance, and Zhao Yueru easily dealt more than minus 100,000 damage with each attack. Naturally, Shifeng didn't hold back either. After activating Heavenly Dragon's power, he activated Twilight's Shadow and Twilight of the Gods. His 8 doppelgangers then attacked the Lord of Fire simultaneously, and damages exceeding minus 70,000 appeared above the Lord of Fire's head, one after another, with the occasional critical hit dealing over minus 100,000 damage. Seeing Shifeng's total DPS, everyone felt their hearts skip a beat. If their opponent were only a level 75 Great Lord, not a mythic-ranked ancient fiend, they had no doubt that Shifeng could defeat the monster in less than a minute. After another 10 minutes, Zero Wing's main force wore the Lord of Fire's HP down to 30%. Despicable mortals! You dare intrude on my slumbering grounds? Burn to ash! The Lord of Fire bellowed once more, and a blade of fire appeared in his hands. He then swung the blade before him. Boom! As the blade crashed into the ground, the impact felt like a volcanic eruption. The attack killed 8 players instantly, and the earth under the flaming blade had vanished, leaving nothing but a cracked crater. The surviving team members gasped. With just one attack, the Lord of Fire had altered the battlefield's terrain. Not only was his attack speed extraordinarily high, but the range of his attack was also absurd. Don't panic. Keep your distance. When the boss begins to channel mana, don't stand in front of him. Shifeng calmly commanded. Shifeng understood the Lord of Fire well. The additional fire-type damage the boss's attacks inflicted was what made this monster so powerful. Without high enough fire resistance, even MTs of the same level would die instantly. This was why Star Moon Kingdom's various major powers had been utterly helpless against the Lord of Fire in Shifeng's previous life. Fortunately, Kola currently wore the Flame Demon's crown and had consumed a Master Fire Resistance potion. Even when struck, he only took several thousand points of fire-type damage. Although the Lord of Fire had AoE skills and spells, as well, these attack patterns were quite simple. The attacks would be easy to avoid as long as players paid attention. As the seconds continued to tick by and the Lord of Fire lost more HP, the boss became increasingly frenzied. From time to time, he activated Meteor Hand and bombarded Zero Wing's players with multiple flaming stones. Any player that these meteors struck, aside from Kola, died instantly, and as a result, the team continued to lose members. When the Lord of Fire cast Sea of Lava, a large-scale destruction spell, Shifeng activated Absolute Domain and protected his team from annihilation. When the Lord of Fire had only 5% of his HP remaining, Zero Wing's team had fewer than 30 players. Seeing this, Gentle Snow activated Will of Light, her ultimate skill. 5 swords of light descended on the Lord of Fire, each dealing over minus 300,000 damage. Some attacks were even criticals, dealing twice as much damage. After all 5 swords had struck, the Lord of Fire had lost over 2 million HP. Following which, Zhao Yueru activated the super large-scale destruction spell, Frost Flame Hell, while Violet Cloud cast Dimensional Fracture and Shadow Rage. Aqua Rose and Blackie similarly cast their large-scale destruction spells. As spell after spell plundered the Lord of Fire's HP, the Ancient Fiend's rage continued to grow. The boss responded by summoning 2 blades of fire and brandishing them against these intruding players, every one of his slashes causing waves of lava that washed over Zero Wing's members. Even Cola watched his HP drain, little by little, despite his active Titan's will, which reduced incoming damage by 95%. Unfortunately, the lava had killed Turtledove and Yi Wemian. When the Lord of Fire had less than 1% of HP left, he dismissed his flaming weapons and summoned a tidal wave of fire that surged towards Zero Wing's team. Even space began to crack under the burning tidal wave's might. "We're doomed." The color drained from Cola's face as he watched the approaching attack. "Die." Just before the fiery wave descended on his players, Sherfone, who had already activated Power of Darkness, activated Blade Liberation and Divine Providence. He then countered the incoming tidal wave with a swing of his blade. Lightning Slash! A blue lightning bolt tore the tidal wave in half, and the Lord of Fire's eyes dulled as he collapsed into the lava, the resulting impact causing a small wave. Chapter 21:21 Ancient Fiend's Loot. Chapter 21:21 Ancient Fiend's Loot. As the Lord of Fire fell lifelessly into the lava field, Fire Dance and Zero Wing's other surviving members toppled backward in exhaustion. However, despite how tired they were, joy still flashed in their eyes. It was common knowledge in God's domain that the stronger a monster was, the better its loot would be. Although they did not understand what a mythic-ranked ancient fiend represented exactly, they were quite aware of how powerful the Lord of Fire was. It was undoubtedly the strongest boss they had fought since joining God's domain. If Sherfone hadn't pulled out all the stops in that final moment, bisecting the boss's flaming tidal wave, they would have been annihilated. The surviving players watched their experience bars grow with flying speed after the Lord of Fire's death. The boss had been a level 75, mythic-ranked ancient fiend, and unlike the flame demon King Sherfone had defeated a while ago, their quest hadn't suppressed the Lord of Fire. Even splitting the EXP among 100 players, each would receive a substantial amount, but with fewer than 10 players were still alive after the fight, it was easy to imagine how much EXP each had received. Fire Dance and the others had risen from 70 to 71 on the spot, while Sherfone climbed from 5% to 42% of level 74. While everyone was surprised by the awarded EXP, the Falling Star Secret Land began to transform. The lava hell that had surrounded Zero Wing's members altered into a barren wasteland. The Lord of Fire's body cooled and disintegrated, crumbling into a pile of hot rubble. At the same time, loot rained down from the sky, creating a small, dazzling mound. None of Zero Wing's team could have imagined that this boss would drop so much loot. "Alright, let's resurrect the team. Then we'll split the loot." Sherfone chuckled when he saw his teammates' glittering eyes. The surviving healers did as they were told and resurrected their fallen teammates, while Sherfone organized the dropped items. In the end, it took Sherfone more than half an hour to appraise the Lord of Fire's loot. Every item he picked up was top tier, and even he, someone who had seen countless treasures in the past, couldn't quite control his elation. He finally understood why the various superpowers had loved hunting ancient fiends, despite the extreme cost. There was simply no comparison between an ancient fiend's loot and that of a super large-scale Helm mode team dungeon. Although the Lord of Fire was only a pseudo-ancient fiend since it hadn't completed its evolution, Sherfone was certain that these items could drive any superpower mad. If the various superpowers found out about today's raid, they'd do anything they could to get their hands on this loot, even if it meant destroying Zero Wing. A total of 247 items dropped. Among them, 31 were epic materials, 6 were inferior legendary materials, and 83 were materials of lower ranks. 7 luminaries crystals had also dropped, the equivalent of 14 units. There were 32 attributed gemstones of various types, 3 mysterious iron magic crystal treasure chests, and 1 secret silver magic crystal treasure chest, as well. 37 magic scrolls had dropped, 3 of which were Tier 4, 16 were Tier 3, and the rest were Tier 2 magic scrolls. 8 skill books also lay among the items, 7 of which were for ordinary Tier 2 skills, and 1 was a Tier 2 taboo skill. A total of 33 weapons and equipment pieces had dropped, 21 level 70 fine gold equipment pieces, 8 level 70 dark gold equipment pieces, 3 epic items, and 1 fragmented legendary item. The 3 pieces of epic equipment alone were enough to move Shifeng's heart, not to mention the level 70 fine gold and dark gold equipment. The 3 epic items were the Source Fire Ring, Unyielding Battle Armor, and Phantom Leather Boots, top-tier items even among epic equipment. Not only did the Source Fire Ring increase a player's fire resistance and the power of their fire-type skills and spells, but it also had an innate teleportation skill. Although the teleportation skill wasn't as powerful as the 7 Luminaries' rings, it allowed the user to cross a distance of 100,000 yards. Although the Unyielding Battle Armor's basic attributes were average at best, it had a passive skill that halved its wearer's stamina consumption. The Phantom Leather Boots, on the other hand, were top-tier boots for assassins. Not only did the equipment boost the player's concealment effects, but it also granted a 20% increase to reaction speed. Although the fragmented legendary item the Lord of Fire had dropped was neither a weapon nor equipment piece, it was even more valuable than either of the same rank. Falling Fire Orb, fragmented legendary rank. The Lord of Fire's concentrated essence. This item contains all of the Lord of Fire's power. When used, the Falling Fire Orb temporarily raises its user's tier by 1 for 3 hours. Can upgrade up to a maximum of Tier 4. Cooldown, 12 hours. Normally, fragmented legendary items only improved players' combat power by half a tier, but this Falling Fire Orb boosted a player by a full tier. The item's only flaw was its Tier 4 restriction. The orb would become useless once players reached that tier. Even so, Shifeng was amazed by the Falling Fire Orb. Reaching Tier 4 wasn't an easy task in God's domain, after all. The Lord of Fire had dropped another item that delighted Shifeng. An Advanced Construction Promotion Order. Normally, players could only obtain this item by completing the first clear of a level 100+, super large-scale team dungeon. Moreover, the drop rate wasn't 100%. With this promotion order, players could upgrade a basic construction in their guild town or city to advanced rank. This promotion order might not seem like much at first glance. In fact, most superpowers hadn't paid it much attention in Shifeng's previous life. Securing the first clear in a level 100+, super large-scale team dungeon was practically impossible for first and second-rate guilds, so they hadn't paid any attention to the Advanced Construction Promotion Order, either. Everyone had only realized the promotion order's true value after players had reached level 150. It was nearly invaluable due to its ability to upgrade a basic battle arena to advanced rank. Player-constructed advanced battle arenas were much larger than basic battle arenas, and they were actually larger on the inside than the building scale should allow. Advanced battle arenas also had higher mana density than their basic counterparts, allowing players to train their combat techniques more efficiently. Advanced battle arenas could also record and simulate combat techniques, which players could then learn from. Unfortunately, this function required a lot of magic crystals, and the stronger a combat technique was, the higher its cost would be. Once he had finished examining the Lord of Fire's loot, Shifeng shared the weapons and equipment details in the team chat, holding an internal auction for these items. Everyone gasped when they saw these items. In a short moment, all of the fine gold, dark gold, and epic weapons and equipment had been divided among the team. Flying Shadow had won the Phantom Leather Boots, Zhao Yueru had won the Source Fire Ring, and Remnant Cloud had secured the Unyielding Battle Armor. All 3 of them felt their combat powers grow significantly. Now that we've finished our quest, it's time to head home. Shifeng then retrieved a return scroll and activated it. he transformed into a streak of white light and left the now crippled Falling Star secret land. Chapter 21-22 Zero Wing in an Uproar Star Moon Kingdom, White River City. Chapter 21-22 Zero Wing in an Uproar Star Moon Kingdom, White River City. Sherfone and the others had spent 8 days fighting in the Falling Star secret land, and they were mentally exhausted from the repetitive grinding. However, when they returned to Zero Wing's residence in White River City, they were hit by the residence's depressing atmosphere before they had a chance to rest. Guild leader, you're finally back! Busy in the guild hall's main lobby, Yolan's weary features brightened with excitement when she noticed Sherfeng's team returning to the residence. She hadn't been sure that she'd last much longer had Sherfeng's team remained missing. What's the guild's current situation? Sherfeng asked. Overall, it's bad. Many players and adventurer teams have joined the guild in the last week or so, but the guild's finances were already tight. To make matters worse, Starlink has started attacking us in the surrounding neutral maps. We've already suffered over 50,000 casualties. We've nearly had to empty our savings just to compensate the slain players. Fortunately, Unyielding Soul has sent us some aid, so we've been able to maintain the guild's operations, Yulan explained with a bitter smile. But if this keeps up, the guild's funds will run dry sooner or later. Moreover, the lack of funds isn't the most pressing issue right now. We've already depleted the weapons and equipment stock in our guild warehouse. If we don't replenish it soon, the guild won't be able to operate normally. How did the guild fall into such a state? I thought I had told everyone to limit our activity earlier. Sherfone was surprised to hear that the guild has suffered so many deaths. Starlink had only begun its assault a day ago, yet it had slain more than 50,000 Zero-Wing players in that time. No matter how he thought about it, defeat shouldn't be possible. Initially, we only lost around 20,000 lives, but Starlink refused to give up and ambushed out members after they moved to the Silverwing town area. Enraged, some of our guildmates led teams to face Starlink's members. Unfortunately, the results were far from ideal. The players Starlink has sent to attack us are impressively strong, especially a specific, fierce group. With just a 100-man team, they killed more than 10,000 of our players. 400 of the slain players were even members of the Dark God's Legion. That team also destroyed 2 of our hell tanks. After that, I told everyone to stay put in Silverwing Town. Only then did our casualty rate decrease. However, Starlink's members have surrounded the town and are causing a ruckus. Many of our guild members have begun to express their opinions on this issue. Holding up in the town isn't a long-term solution. The matter clearly frustrated Yulan. This clash with Starlink had shown her how truly powerful superpowers were. The quantity and quality of Zero Wing's experts and those in Starlink were on completely different levels. If current players weren't so low-leveled and low-tiered, not even Silverwing Town's defenses would have stopped Starlink's assault. So, that's the case. Yolan's report gave Sherfone a rough understanding of the guild's situation. The predicament didn't particularly surprise Sherfone. The guild's collection of powerful weapons and equipment, as well as Zero Wing's large number of Tier 2 players, was why the guild could provoke so many superpowers and win multiple major battles. However, not only had Tier 2 players become more common, but the gap between Zero Wing's equipment standards and the various superpowers had begun to close. In addition, the new auction arena allowed the various superpowers to secure their rule in their territories, so they had less to worry about and could afford to dispatch more experts on long-distance tasks. Fire, take some of our people to Silverwing Town and get rid of the players causing trouble outside of our walls. They do not qualify to flaunt their strength in Zero Wing's territory, Sherfone said as he turned to Fire Dance, who stood beside him. Letting the guild's enemy cause a ruckus in its territory was bad for the guild's reputation. If this persisted, morale would also plummet. Leave it to me. Fire Dance smiled and nodded. She had grown bored of grinding monsters in the Falling Star secret land, so this task would be a good change of pace. The assassin that teleported to Silverwing Town with Violet Cloud, Kola, and a few other core upper echelons. Guild leader, those Starlink players are extraordinary, and there are a lot of them. I'm afraid that they won't be so easy to deal with, Yulan expressed her concern as she watched Fire Dance lead a dozen or so comrades to Silverwing Town. We're just chasing a bunch of riffraff away. We don't need to mobilize a full force, Sherfone calmly responded. Anyways, you said the guild needs weapons and equipment? I have some. Use them to ease our current predicament. After saying so, Sherfone started a trade with Yulan and dropped one item after another into the window, all weapons and equipment from the Falling Star secret land. He had already given the Falling Fire Orb to Fire Dance, and with the fragmented legendary item, her team should be more than enough to deal with these problem players. When Yulan saw the weapons and equipment Sherfone traded to her, she was dumbfounded. Level 70 equipment? Yulan stared at the window incredulously. The various superpowers likely only had a handful of level 70 items, yet Sherfone handed her nearly 1,000 weapons and equipment pieces. Moreover, the weakest pieces of equipment were mysterious iron rank, while most of the items were secret silver rank. Taking a closer look at an item's attribute panel, Yulan's eyes nearly fell from their sockets. Not only were these items level 70, but they also had an attribute that reduced players' stamina consumption. Current players dreamed of using such equipment. This stamina rate reduction equipment could sell for astronomical prices. Guild leader, are we really going to let everyone purchase these items from the guild warehouse? Yulan could not help but ask. Every weapon and equipment piece Sherfone had handed her was undoubtedly top tier at this stage of the game. These items could be used as capital to secure more resources in neutral maps. Any other guild would most likely reserve these weapons and equipment for their core members. They'd never give their normal and elite members access to such precious items. It's fine. Use them to motivate our members, Sherfone said, chuckling. While the level 70 mysterious iron and secret silver equipment were good, these pieces were nothing compared to the level 70 secret silver set equipment Sherfone still had in his bags. Yulan then stored the weapons and equipment in the guild warehouse, allowing members to purchase them for GCPs. Meanwhile, Sherfone secretly left the guild residence and made his way to the Adventurers Association to turn in the Lord of Fire's crusade quest. After all was said and done, the weapons and equipment he had collected were only a temporary solution. If Zero Wing wanted to defeat Starlink, these items wouldn't be enough. Zero Wing needed more funding and strength. Shortly after Sherfone left, the level 70 weapons and equipment appeared on the guild warehouse's exchange list. When they discovered these items, the guild members looking to upgrade their items stared at the new equipment with bloodshot eyes. Crap! Level 70 secret silver equipment! Am I dreaming? Did our guild rob some NPC's treasury? How do we have so many level 70 secret silver weapons and equipment? Quick, look! This equipment reduces stamina consumption. Amazing! If I had a full set of this equipment, I wouldn't have to worry about my stamina when I'm exploring neutral maps. A commotion tore through Zero Wing's residence as guild members discovered the newly stocked guild warehouse and began to think of ways to earn more GCPs to purchase the level 70 weapons and equipment. Meanwhile, news of Zero Wing's new collection quickly reached the various major powers. Chapter 21-23 Hero Ranked Reward. Chapter 21-23 Hero Ranked Reward. Shortly after the level 70 weapons and equipment appeared in Zero Wing's guild warehouse, news of these items reached Starlink's Blood or Fortress. Several level 66 or higher experts watched 3 kills, who gazed at the scenery outside the window, nervously in the 5th floor meeting room in Starlink's residence. Vice Guild Leader, according to our spies in Zero Wing, the guild has offered nearly 1,000 level 70 weapons and pieces of equipment for purchase in its guild warehouse. Moreover, every equipment piece reduces stamina consumption. A level 66 ranger reported, watching 3 kills with a hint of desire in his gaze. Zero Wing's members are on cloud 9 because of this. Many of them are desperately trying to earn GCPs to purchase the stamina rate reduction equipment. This turn of events has certainly increased morale within the guild. The various superpowers still considered level 70 weapons and equipment extravagant at this stage of the game. Even experts like himself only wore level 65 fine gold items. If he could get his hands on 1 or 2 more pieces of level 65 dark gold equipment, he'd sleep with a wide grin on his face. However, Zero Wing had just offered its normal and elite members the chance to use level 70 secret silver weapons and equipment. This benefit was truly enviable. Moreover, the secret silver equipment reduced stamina consumption. He'd have a much easier time developing if he could purchase a few pieces of such equipment, yet players who weren't even ordinary experts had been given such an opportunity. The situation was maddening. How kind of Zero Wing to offer up such equipment. Even 3 Kills was slightly surprised by Zero Wing's generosity. He chuckled and said, "Unfortunately, this is only a temporary measure. We have already prepared equipment for a protracted war. The guild leader has even amassed 300,000 gold to persuade outside experts to move against our enemy. The fact that Zero Wing is offering its normal and elite members such equipment only makes them juicier targets. I had thought that Black Flame would recall his guild members to Star Moon Kingdom and hold up there. It would have taken our guild a lot of time and resources to destroy Zero Wing if he had. However, it seems that he truly believes his guild is on equal footing with the various superpowers just because he's small victories against superpowers in the past. How foolish! Zero Wing is mistaken if it thinks it can face us head-on. It's simply overestimating itself," a tall woman in pitch-black leather armor said, frowning. She then said to 3 Kills, "Vice Guild Leader, let's make our move before Dark Soul. We can't let Startled Wind and Dark Soul claim all of the glory." "Of course. You men go prepare. We're going to cut off all paths between Star Moon Kingdom and Silverwing Town. We'll eliminate the town's income," 3 Kills said, nodding. "Leave it to me, Vice Guild Leader. I'll make sure that no one can reach the town by land," Yu Meng declared as she patted the heavy hammer she carried, absolute confidence shining in her eyes. Meanwhile, Shifeng had secretly reached the Adventurers Association's second-floor hall. "Lord Protector, how may I be of service?" a senior administrator asked as he approached Shifeng. "I wish to turn in a quest. Here is the falling fire heart I've retrieved," Shifeng said as he pulled a rock enveloped in blue flame from his bag and handed it to the senior administrator. Every crusade quest required proof of completion. The falling fire heart was evidence of the Lord of Fire's defeat. The senior administrator was stunned when he saw the falling fire heart. Once he snapped out of his daze, the NPC looked at Shifeng with even greater respect. After verifying the falling fire heart's authenticity, a series of system notifications altered Shifeng. Star Moon Kingdom Region System Announcement. Congratulations to Zero Wing for completing the Hero Crusade quest, Lord of Fire. Rewarding 30,000 guild popularity and promotion to 1-star honorary guild in Star Moon Kingdom. The system announcement echoed throughout Star Moon Kingdom 3 times, and every player in the kingdom heard it loud and clear. The various Adventurers Association branches throughout the kingdom also hung Zero Wing's guild flag in their main halls. Any player that visited would see these flags. This was proof of the guild's glory. Even if Zero Wing faded from God's domain, its flag would remain in Star Moon Kingdom's Adventurers Association branches. However, Shifeng was far more excited by the fact that his guild had become a 1-star honorary guild. An honorary guild. Countless guilds had dreamed of obtaining the title during his previous life. Even though the title was only effective in the kingdom or empire that had granted it, it was capital that would help a guild grow stronger. Even Shadow had fought desperately to earn the guild title, yet Shifeng had secured it for Zero Wing so soon in this life. Normally, guilds had to complete 3 Hero Crusade quests to earn the 1-star honorary guild title, but since Zero Wing was the first to complete such a quest in Star Moon Kingdom, the title had been granted as a bonus reward. The 1-star honorary guild title was easily worth more than 100 epic weapons and equipment pieces to the various guilds. Not only would the guild receive more high-ranked quests from NPC nobles due to the title, but its members would also receive a 5% boost to their basic attributes, and EXP earned within the respective country. While a 5% boost to attributes and EXP didn't seem like much, it was an extraordinary boon to high-level players. Besides, many a little makes a mickle. Players with these buffs would gradually pull ahead of those without. As a result, the difference between guilds would continue to grow. After becoming a 1-star honorary guild in Star Moon Kingdom, Zero Wing's position in the kingdom was even sturdier than before. Without overwhelming strength, foreign powers could do nothing against the guild in Star Moon Kingdom. This was one of the reasons that the various major powers had fought so desperately to complete Hero Crusade quests in the past. A kingdom or empire's honorary guild title was akin to a terrain advantage in war. When Zero Wing's members discovered the benefits of being a 1-star honorary guild, they couldn't help their growing excitement. Although they couldn't currently grind in neutral maps, with this guild title, they could grind in Star Moon Kingdom, and they wouldn't level any slower than in neutral maps. Moreover, they also had a certain advantage against the kingdom's field bosses. Commander, Zero Wing has more hope of survival now. Even if Starlink prevents Zero Wing from developing in neutral maps, the guild can safely develop in Star Moon Kingdom. Ilofe, who currently resided in Silverwing Town, exclaimed. Due to Yen Tianxing's suggestion, the FFF adventurer team had joined Zero Wing, but despite that, it couldn't do much to change the guild's situation in the Or Empire. Starlink was simply too strong when it got serious. Zero Wing's members couldn't even set foot outside the town. The various powers that could explore neutral moss would eventually surpass those who couldn't. Fortunately, now that Zero Wing had received an honorary guild title, its development speed wouldn't be affected if it couldn't develop in neutral maps. At the very least, ordinary powers shouldn't hope to surpass the guild. Starlink would also find Zero Wing far more difficult to deal with in Star Moon Kingdom. As long as Zero Wing persisted, it was bound to turn its situation around. God's domain constantly changed, after all, and Starlink couldn't afford to focus all of its strength against Zero Wing all the time. Sure enough, Zero Wing hasn't made it this far by relying on luck. It had been patiently enduring until it accomplished this feat. Yen Tianxing breathed a sigh of relief when he read the system announcement. He had fought Starlink's experts plenty of times before, and he had to admit that it was a frighteningly powerful guild. It had already dispatched an astonishing number of experts to the Or Empire, and the Mad Beast Legion tore through the Empire like a typhoon. The Legion left devastation in its path. Its members had almost succeeded in killing Yen Tianxing, as well. If not for Silverwing Town's magic towers and guardian puppets, Yen Tianxing had no doubt that Mad Beast and his legion would have captured the town by now. Commander, look! Zero Wing's main force members have arrived. It looks like they're planning to confront the Mad Beast Legion, Ilofe said as she pointed at Fire Dance's team, which had appeared near the town's entrance, and seemed to be heading for Mad Beast Legion's campsite. Have they lost their minds? Yen Tianxing's anxiety peaked as he watched the 30-plus players direct their mounts toward the enemy legion. Chapter 21-24 Confrontation at the Entrance. Chapter 21-24 Confrontation at the Entrance. On a small hill outside Silverwing Town, dozens of members of the Mad Beast Legion had set up camp and were resting. Currently, these players were whining and dining without a care in the world, completely disregarding the heavily fortified Silverwing Town several thousand yards away. The commander is being too careful this time. He's actually having us simply stand guard here. Can't we just destroy Silverwing Town? What can Zero Wing do against us? A level 67 Guardian Knight said as he glanced at the distant Silverwing Town. Previously, everyone was talking about how powerful Zero Wing's Dark Gods Legion was. In the end, didn't we slaughter that legion's members? The Mad Beast Legion was in existence known throughout the western continent of God's domain for having destroyed over 20 guild towns, some of which were even controlled by superpowers. Yet, now, their commander, Startled Wind, was actually having them stand guard outside Silverwing Town and had only tasked them with preventing players from leaving the town. This was completely different from their normal operations. Panther, stop grumbling. At least you got to get some exercise with those people from the Dark Gods Legion. We have only mobs to fight against. There's not even a field boss in sight. A level 67 berserker carrying a white bone greatsword said, rolling his eyes at the Guardian Knight named Black Panther. To maintain surveillance on Silverwing Town, the Mad Beast Legion had split into two groups. One group would either grind for levels or rest, while the other group would keep watch over the town. The two groups took turns, switching responsibilities with each other to prevent the levels from falling behind. Alright, that's enough. The commander naturally has his reasons. Moreover, whether in terms of defensive structures or NPC soldiers, Silverwing Town is much stronger than the towns we've destroyed thus far. In a frontal confrontation, even if we do succeed in capturing Silverwing Town, we'll most likely suffer significant losses, a level 68 scholarly man wearing silvery gray leather armor said. In a deep tone, he continued, while our task this time is indeed to destroy Zero Wing, we also have to conserve our strength. After all, our true enemy is not a measly guild like Zero Wing but those bastards from the western continent. Since we can slowly whittle down Zero Wing without suffering any damage, we naturally don't need to invest too much effort and reveal our trump cards. At the scholarly man's words, everyone present immediately lost their sloppy manner and grew serious, especially at the mention of the bastards from the western continent. Vice Commander, I heard that Zero Wing's black flame is very strong and that he had actually defeated the 4 Shadow Demon Sword Demon. Between him and the commander, who do you think is stronger? Black Panther could not help but ask curiously. When the Mad Beast Legion members heard Black Panther's question, they sent curious gazes at the scholarly man as well. They were conversant with the 4 Shadow Demons' strength. Every one of the 4 Shadow Demons was an absolute monster that had reached the domain realm decades ago. Meanwhile, among the 4, Sword Demon was ranked number 1 when it came to a frontal clash. However, they did not have a very clear idea of the strength of their commander, as they had never actually seen Startled Wind display it before. The only person that might know would be their vice commander, Cloudy Mountain. After all, Startled Wind and Cloudy Mountain were once enemies. Both of them possessed monster-level strength. 50-50, I guess. After all, a field battle is different from an official competition. There are many things you can use in a field battle that you can't in a competition. Cloudy Mountain replied after giving the matter some thought. Vice Commander, aren't you giving that black flame too much credit? In my opinion, that black flame might not even be a match for Party Leader Inc., let alone having an even chance against the commander. That's right. That sword demon is already an old man. His mental state is no longer at its peak. Although Party Leader Inc. might not be a match for Sword Demon in terms of combat standards, in a field battle, she can definitely kill that old man. Everyone felt that their vice commander was blowing things out of all proportion. The 4 Shadow Demons might be legends, but the Mad Beast Legion's current fame and strength were both superior to the 4 Shadow Demons. Setting aside the Mad Beast Legion's commander and vice commander, just its team leaders were already enough to inspire fear in even first-rate guilds. Take Ink Rain, the Mad Beast Legion's number 1 party leader, for example. She had fought over 10 monster-level experts thus far. Moreover, like every member of the Mad Beast Legion, she was also very adept at field battles. If Ink Rain fought Sword Demon out in the fields, even Sword Demon would be in serious trouble. While the Mad Beast Legion members were bickering, dust clouds suddenly appeared a short distance away. Some of the players that were keeping a lookout on the campsite's surroundings noticed this immediately. Vice Commander, there are people charging toward us from Silverwing Town, a ranger shouted after observing the dust clouds using eagle eyes. Zero Wing's members are finally unable to sit still. We'll finally get to exercise our bodies, Black Panther said, smiling as he licked his lips. Your luck really is good. I'll definitely ask to be in the same group as you next time. Brilliant Python, the berserker carrying the white bone greatsword, said with excitement. How many people did they send? Cloudy Mountain asked as he stood up from his seat. A little over 30, the observing ranger reported carefully. Just 30 plus? For a moment, the Mad Beast Legion members could not help but be stunned. They even wondered if the ranger had seen missed 1 or 2 zeros. That's right, just 30 plus. However, judging by their appearances, I think these people are part of Zero Wing's main force, the ranger explained. Main force? Is Zero Wing really that stupid? Does it think it can deal with our Mad Beast Legion with just 30-odd players? Vice Commander, let my 6th party take the field. I'll make sure that none of these people return alive. Laughing at the number of players Zero Wing had dispatched, the Mad Beast Legion members immediately took the initiative to volunteer themselves for the upcoming fight, afraid that someone would steal this opportunity from them. Ink and Panther, bring your 2 parties and go teach those people a lesson. However, this is also a rare opportunity. Contact 3 Kills men and have them come here immediately using a group teleportation scroll. We need to launch a full encirclement, and make sure nobody escapes. Cloudy Mountain commanded as he looked at the approaching figures of Fire Dance and the others from Zero Wing. Understood. Black Panther and the others could not help feeling a little stunned when they heard Cloudy Mountain's orders. Never imagined that their vice commander would take Zero Wing's members so seriously. However, they still obeyed without hesitation. The Mad Beast Legion had a total of 20 parties. Each party had 6 members and was fully capable of slaying expert teams consisting of several hundred players. In reality, just one party would be more than enough to deal with Zero Wing's 30-plus main force members. Sending 2 parties against so few players was simply making a mountain out of a molehill. Following which, Ink Rain and Black Panther, together with their party members, charged at Fire Dance's team, the distance between the 2 sides rapidly closing. The players in Silverwing Town soon took notice of this situation. At this point, everyone was already aware that Zero Wing was holding up in Silverwing Town. The fact that Zero Wing had suddenly obtained the honorary guild title further reaffirmed their thoughts that it was planning on lying low in Starmoon Kingdom. Hence, Zero Wing taking the initiative to send its main force members at the Mad Beast Legion was outside of everyone's expectations. Zero Wing's main force is going up against the Mad Beast Legion. We're going to have an interesting show to watch. I wonder who will win. You must have never seen how frightening those people from the Mad Beast Legion are. With just a little over 100 players, they've killed over 10,000 players from Zero Wing. Every member of the Mad Beast Legion is a monster. Although Zero Wing's main force members are strong, they're probably still inferior to the Mad Beast Legion members. Zero Wing is truly reckless to send so few players. If it were up to me, I would organize at least a 1,000-man team to take on the Mad Beast Legion. While the players residing in Silverwing Town were discussing the upcoming battle, Yan Tianxing, who was chasing after Fire Dance's team, frowned grimly when he saw the 2 parties the Mad Beast Legion dispatched. Not good. Those are Ink Rain's and Black Panther's parties. We need to help them quickly. Yan Tianxing shouted hurriedly to his team. He had fought Ink Rain and Black Panther before. He would already have his hands full just dealing with Black Panther alone. Black Panther possessed extraordinary strength, fighting more like a fierce berserker than a Guardian Knight. Going up against the Guardian Knight in a frontal confrontation was simply impossible. Ink Rain was even more frightening. In just one exchange, Yan Tianxing had nearly lost his life. If not for a special magic scroll that forcibly saved his life, he wouldn't have been able to block Ink Rain's second hit at all. Even if Zero Wing had Fire Dance taking the lead, Yan Tianxing did not think that her group could last very long against both Black Panther and Ink Rain. Unfortunately, Yan Tianxing's team was still a tad too slow. In the end, they could only watch as Fire Dance's group and Ink Rain's group got within 30 yards of each other and started attacking each other. Zero Wing. Die. Black Panther laughed as he leaped into the air, the icy blue shield he wielded transforming into a gigantic energy shield that smashed down on Fire Dance's group. Not only did Black Panther's attack cover a 30-yard radius, but the strength it carried also warped the space around it. The distant spectating members of Zero Wing paled reflexively at this scene. This move was most likely sufficient to annihilate a 100-man expert team instantly. Just as the mountain-like energy shield was about to land on the Zero Wing group, Cola suddenly jumped into the air with Titan Guard raised. The fragmented legendary shield then transformed into a blazing streak of light that clashed with the descending energy shield. Tier 2 skill, Divine Impact. Boom! An explosion echoed throughout the entire battlefield. In the next moment, Black Panther's gigantic energy shield cracked and disappeared. As for Black Panther himself, he went flying back. Even after he landed, he stumbled 3 steps backward before he managed to stabilize himself. In contrast, Cola remained standing steadily where he lighted. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.